To get out there and vote, but you've got until 8 tonight to finish the deed. Would you please rise to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one announcement this morning, actually two. There's a revised agenda. There's an addendum, closed session pursuant to Government Code, Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel and possible initiation of litigation, one case. And then we have added... This doesn't actually say on the announcement, but we had a discussion in the last meeting that added one agenda item to today's meeting. It's number 16, discussion and possible action on the adoption and second reading of an ordinance, which is the county-initiated text change to consider revisions to the current county zoning code, general access requirements. So that item 16 has been added. It might not be on the published agenda previously sent out. All right. This now takes us to the consent agenda. These are items that are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Anybody in the room can take any item off for discussion. Is there any board member who wishes to do so?
I just have a question on item 3, this, the resolutions honoring the senior citizens. We'll read those at the lunch.
Yes.
Is that?
Okay, so we'll take that.
Well, I'm not sure.
No,
we don't
just
take,
leave it on.
I'm just curious about whether they won't be read here.
No.
They will not be read here. All right, and is there any member of the public or staff that wishes to take any item off the consent agenda?
Oh.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote. We will now take a brief recess until 9:10, at which point public comments will be in order. In session, we're now at the item number 7, which is public comments. We're asking people to limit their comments to 5 minutes per person or 15 minutes per topic. Would anybody from the public like to address the board on any item not on the agenda? Come forward. And please state your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Bruce Castle, and I'm from Murphy's.
And could you sign in, Mr. Castle?
I have. I'm in. Two subjects I'd like to address to the board today. One has to do with the fact that I'm on steering committees for two master plan developments for bicycle paths in the county. And one of them is for the whole county. The other one has to do with the Arnold Mobility Plan. And I want to address the first one, which has to do with bicycle master plan. The second thing that I want to talk about is scheduled maintenance on roads and the shoulders of roads in the county. And my interest there stems from the fact that I represent a group of 60 senior bicycle riders in the Angels Camp to Camp Connell area. We do a lot of bicycle riding on many of the roads in the county, particularly those above Highway 49, but not restricted to that. And what I notice from year to year is that the maintenance of the roads, particularly the shoulders of the roads, leave a lot to be desired. And so those are the two things that I'd like to address, and I'll do that quickly. The Bicycle Master Plan, as it says in the handout that I gave to you, was approved by the COG board in July of 2007. And my understanding was that that was filed with the Planning Department in October of 2007. Nothing came of that plan, as far as I know. And in March of 2008, a few months ago, that plan was resubmitted by the COG to the Planning Department. And still no action has been taken. My concern is that many of the plans that are developed under your direction in the county over time, going back a number of years, have been developed. In some cases, contractors have been hired to do the work, to develop the plan and to assist the citizens and steering committees and the other departments in the county to develop these plans. And then what happens in many instances is they sit on the shelf to gather dust. This has happened with the bicycle master plan over history, and not all of it has been put on the shelf, but a significant portion of it has been put on the shelf. And in this day when gasoline prices are rising and there is certain incentive for people to get out of their cars and onto their bicycles or walking, I think it's critically important for the board to consider what we can do to help that out. And so one of the suggestions, I'll just mention one, that was in this master plan was to install share the road signs on certain roads. And I have in the front and the back of the handout a share the road sign, which is the typical kind of share the road sign for bicyclists that are used in the state. And the master plan urges that the share the road signs be adopted in certain places. Now, that's all I want to say about the master plan. That's my concern, and I would like some feedback at some point in time from the Board of Supervisors or some of the departments about where that bicycle master plan is going, because the longer it gets delayed, the farther behind we get in trying to implement some of the great features in the plan. So that's the comment I have about that. The other comment I have is that I personally ride my bicycle more than 200 miles a month. I've been doing that for 5 years in the county. And I ride dirt roads, I ride paved roads, and one of the sore points with me that I have raised to the board before, and I came here before you, I think in January of 2007, to talk about Murphy's Grade Road. Now, I've ridden Murphy's Grade Road a couple times during the past week, and as I go up the hill, and I'm within 2 miles of the town of Murphy's, the side of the road where I ride has debris of various kinds. There are rocks on the road, small ones, gravel. In some cases there are glass, and in other cases there are piles of leaves and other types of small branches. What this means when I go up that road is I have to move out to the left of the white line, and I don't like to do that. I look in my rear view mirror to make sure that it's clear to do so, that there isn't traffic descending upon me. Nonetheless, the issue is that those roads, and Murphy's Grade Road is an example of one, should be cleared off. That's my opinion. I happened to talk to Marita last night, and we had a discussion about maintenance of roads, scheduled and not scheduled. And my assumption has been that there would be a scheduled maintenance plan for people in the roads department to look at the condition of the roads, particularly the shoulders, and to clear those, particularly in the areas between Angels Camp and Murphy's, because a lot of people ride their bicycles on Murphy's Grade Road. And Tom, I spoke to you a year ago. You and I had a discussion in this forum about your view that bicycle riders should stay off of Murphy's Grade Road. It's too dangerous. The traffic is traveling 50, 55 miles an hour, and that's no place for bicycle riders to be. But I point out that in going from Murphy's to Angels Camp, there are 3 ways that you can get there by bicycle. One is Highway 4, One is French Gulch Road, and one is Murphy's Grade Road. And a lot of people use that. In some instances, they use it for commuting between Murphy's or higher up down to Angels Camp. So I'd like the board to consider scheduled maintenance of these roads. The issue that I find is that the alternative is to call the road department and ask them to do certain maintenance of the kind that I'm speaking about, sweeping the roads and so on. I don't think that's the job of the citizens to be calling the departments to ask them to do something that I feel they should be doing anyway. That's why I refer to scheduled maintenance. So anyway, that's the concern I have. And on the handout that I gave you, I talk about quite a few of the roads that are in Tom's district. There's one or two, Steve, in your district, and Marita, there's one in your district too, or a couple of them. And this is not confined to just the Angels Camp and Murphy's area. It's more widespread than that. So I'd like you to give some consideration to that. And the final point I'd like to make is that I have talked about a vision that I have. I'd like to think of Calaveras County as becoming a destination point for riders all over the state, particularly Central California. And we're making some progress in that direction. You may know that this Saturday, the Sierra Century ride is happening, and that's going to start at the Count's Winery. There's a 50-mile ride and a 100-mile ride. But if you look at the roads that they are traveling on, which is Sheep Ranch Road, this is one of them. Another one is Jesus Maria Road. If you drive those in your car, you will find those are riddled with potholes. And what happened last year in the Sierra Century is there were a lot of complaints about the condition of the roads. There were a lot of spokes and tires that were broken because of going over the rough roads with road bikes. So please consider the condition of the roads, and particularly the relatively low-cost portion of clearing the roads of the shoulders of debris. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Castle. You may be happy to know that there's been a road crew on Jesus Marie Road for the last week patching potholes, so
Yes,
there is some progress being made on this.
And I do have one other comment. The lower end of French Gulch Road is going to be paved, the lower mile, in August, I've been told. That will help, but there is one more section on French Gulch Road that has not been addressed yet, and that's the middle section. The upper 2 miles have been done. The lower mile is going to be done, and there is a 4th mile in there that has a lot of potholes in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak under items from the public?
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in here just for a second. I spoke to you about this a little earlier,
Yes.
and the Toberer family has arrived here.
Oh, good.
And the reason that I have asked them to come this morning is I want to acknowledge the fact that we have a couple of world champions living in Copperopolis. Most recently, young Zachary Toberer, as recently as over the Memorial Day weekend, or the 5 days prior to the weekend, competed in competition over in Bishop, California, where he came away with the World Championship Packer Award. Zachary, can you come up to the podium?
Yes, this is another triumph for Calaveras grown.
Yeah. Okay, I want to introduce this young man. He's a friend of mine from Copperopolis, California. His name is Zachary Toberer. Reach up there and grab that microphone and pull it down there. Now, Zachary, can you explain to us what you accomplished over in Bishop?
I won World Champion Youth Packer.
And what age group does that involve?
It's 17 and under.
17 and under, and you are?
9.
Isn't that pretty remarkable that a 9-year-old could kind of wax some 17-year-old guys in that? I know that we've got at least maybe Tom. Are you a packer? No. Bill, you're a packer. Okay. Well, I've done a fair amount of mountain horseback packing, and I can attest to the fact that you are in a tough business. So, can you introduce the rest of your family?
I have a brother named Jake and my sister Grace, and my parents are Mike and Michelle.
Okay. What your dad has won some championships too, right?
Yeah, in 2001.
2001.
He won world champion.
Okay, that was a world champion in what age group? 18 and below or something? Or? Mike and Michelle, can you bring your other kids up, please? Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
Hi, Grace. Jacob. Where's Jake?
Kind of shy like his dad.
I want to welcome all of you, Michael. I really appreciate you bringing your family here this morning. For decades we've had world champions like the Rasmussens and stuff around here, but I wanted to make sure that you were acknowledged for your accomplishments. Michael, you profess to being a little shy about this, but I would like for you to tell the board and these people here about the other youngsters that you took from Copperopolis and what they accomplished.
Okay, what we did is we have 14 kids in our 4-H group that we started teaching packing, and about half of those had never been around a mule. And we took them to a show down in Squaw Valley where I think we took 13 kids down there, and they all placed pretty good. And then 4 of those went to Bishop Mule Days, and they all finished in the top 6, which was pretty good for a couple of them that had never packed before at all. That's my claim.
How about you? How did you do?
I did okay. I ended up 3rd overall this year. Did well in the over 40, though.
Do people come from the West Coast?
Yeah, we competed generally. I think this year there are people from 11 different states there, and it's a big variety from English type show all the way up to the packing, and the packing is kind of the beef of it. That's kind of how it started 40 years ago. But yeah, we compete against some Brazilians, and every now and then we get some Australian teams, but mostly we compete against other government teams like Forest Service, the parks, Yosemite, Grand Canyon, that sort of thing.
So you competed as a 4-H, or your son did?
No, he's in the individual. The kids that had learned this that I took with us were in our 4-H group, but it's not actually a 4-H project.
Yeah, I read the article in the paper about you.
Okay, now Zachary, can you explain to us how a person goes about getting a mule? I don't understand that.
No.
Well, you don't. Huh?
Yeah.
Don't you have to kind of cross a horse with a donkey or something like that?
You have to breed a donkey to a mare or a stallion to a jenny, I think.
Okay. Well, Marita, this is pretty remarkable that Zachary is doing his part for global warming. He's driving a hybrid. Ooh. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, nice work.
Thanks.
That's pretty good.
Would anybody else like to speak from items from the public? Lockyer?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The district has received several complaints about burning up high in the country, Arnold area, etc., from prescription burns. And this morning I also received an email forwarded to me by Supervisor Calvi. I want to be very clear about it. Nobody has an absolute authority about burning once the burn season is over. Air Pollution Control District has the total authority. We have been letting U.S. Forest Service or California, or our CAL FIRE people burn under prescription burns. What prescription burn is when the burning is not causing any nuisance. In case the district receives more than two complaints, sometimes we start even one family complaints. If there are several people who are residing and are being impacted from the smoke, we do cut those burns out. And burning is allowed under general public interest, that if we don't allow burning in that area and accidental fires or fires from the lightning, etc., cause, they take several hundred acres with them. But the basic interest of the district is protection of public health, and if the smoke is causing public some breathing problems, at that time we require U.S. Forest Service or CAL FIRE to cut that burning until and unless the previous smoke disappears. So I hope I have answered the question.
So, Lochner, after the start of the no burn season or the end of the burn season, if you have the Forest Service, SPI, the park put in their prescription burn, does our Air Pollution Control District say yay or nay? Are we the ones that approve that they can burn?
We have done those prescriptions prior to the declaration of the burn season under Smoke Management Plan, SMPs, which we approve, and that's pursuant to the state law. We approve the Smoke Management Plan and we say if the smoke is causing any public danger or public health impacts, under those circumstances, that's burning has to be discontinued until we get the better weather again and the smoke starts dissipating.
So that's under the state government code that they're allowed to do that?
It's under the state government code, but the authority rests with the Air Pollution Control Board and the Air Pollution Control District.
Okay.
And there has been I should say, gentleman's agreement with the U.S. Forest and the CAL FIRE that keep those fires away from Highway 4, Highway 26 corridors, so the average citizen driving up or down does not misunderstand maybe the burn ban has been lifted. So they have been practically good on those times. But sometimes some of the crews start fire which is almost visible. But we have been receiving quite a few complaints, and we do investigate those complaints and keep in touch with the U.S. Forest Service and CAL FIRE.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, I have a question, Lochner. When you investigate the complaints, what does that entail? I mean, you can have people out there that are just complaining because they don't like prescribed burns.
Investigation of the...
Quite frankly, some of these prescribed burns are very important for the forest health. And I think some weight needs to be given to the forest health along with public health, particularly if the people want to move up and live in the forest. It seems to me you have some obligation to accommodate forest health when you make that decision. So I guess I'm a little concerned when you say one complaint or two complaints and you're going to basically shut down a prescribed burn. So I guess I would like a little more clarification from you on exactly what the basis is for shutting down a burn, particularly if the complaint is from someone that just doesn't like prescribed burns and isn't anything more than that.
Complaint means it will trigger an investigation. I personally will go there and make sure if the smoke is impacting that general area, not one person, in that general area. And under those circumstances, we ask them to postpone the burning. And the forest health is a lot more important too, but at the same time, if the smoke is not lifting, and even though one person calls, but when I go and inspect and that area is totally inundated, under those circumstances, we ask them to discontinue or don't start any more burns.
Okay. Well, I just hope you give some weight to the forest health also.
Well, I think, Tom, part of it is that, at least in the Ebbets Pass corridor, we're really strict. And when it's fire season, burn season ends, it ends. And yet, the Forest Service, SPI, the parks are continuing their burn. People just don't understand, even though the smoke doesn't impact an area. It's, if we have to, why don't they? I think that's also part of it.
Yes, most of those calls, when they come to the district, I try to explain them, this is why we allow them burning, and they are under control. There are several crew people, they are maintaining it, and they are under control.
Thank you.
Most of the people do understand, but sometimes when...
I know.
Thank
I
you.
get those calls too. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else wish to make a public comment? All right, then we'll move to item number 8, which is the adoption of the ordinance. This is the amended version of it on the dispute resolution, agricultural dispute resolution committee.
There's the two.
Yes, right. There are actually 2 parts to this. Mary?
Mary Motzak, Commissioner, good morning. Last week we went into detailed discussion regarding the ordinance and the amendments, which I did change. Any comments or discussion?
Now, this is as we had, it appears the documents have been revised as we had previously agreed. Any comments from the board? Do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. And the second? Oh, excuse me, and also, is there any public comment on this second item? Nobody here to speak on that? All right. Do I hear a motion on the second?
Well, since I was the one that made all
To
the
div- that one, yes,
modifications,
and wanted to divide it in the first place.
it's probably appropriate.
Okay.
I move adoption of ordinance 1602-100 regarding dispute resolution.
Thank you, Marita. Is there a
Thank you,
second?
Mr. Willens.
Wait a minute, I'm missing something here.
There's
I don't-
there
There
were 2
was
parts to
2.
this.
Okay, I remember
and
that.
and both were
Oh,
revised.
so that's why we have the new agenda or something?
That's correct.
Okay, fine.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, public or board? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Moving right along to item number 9, a minute order authorizing the board chair to sign an annual work plan, financial plan agreement between the USDA APHIS Wildlife Services and the County of Calaveras.
Good morning once again. This morning I'm here to discuss the agreement between the USDA Wildlife Services and the county. The item was originally scheduled 2 weeks ago to go before the board. At that time, I was seeking approval of a minute order to enter into the agreement with Wildlife Services for 1.5 full-time employees. The Wildlife Services program is a general fund program. The general fund provides $78,000 for this 1.5 full-time employees. The afternoon before the meeting 2 weeks ago, I was made aware of the necessity to reduce general fund contributions, or $45,000 for the department. Therefore, I pulled the item from the agenda at that time. To comply with the 10% reduction in net county cost, I am recommending reducing the agreement to 1 full-time employee. This will provide a $26,000 reduction to the general fund. I'm asking for approval of a minute order in which would authorize me to sign a letter of intent to enter into an agreement with Wildlife Services for 1 full-time employee, which would cost the general fund $52,000. In the packets that you have before you, particularly in the original one, there is a handout with the work that was provided to the county by USDA Wildlife Services. In this packet, it states that specialist hours, their work hours are 2,181. It's on page 2 of that handout. In doing the calculation, this reduction actually comes to a 0.05 reduction in a full-time employee. At this time, I will answer any questions you have about this proposal. Wade Carlson, the district supervisor for the USDA Wildlife Services, is also here to answer any questions that you have of him. And I just need to stress that I am not eliminating this program. I am reducing it.
Okay, are there any board questions? And then we'll move to public comments and questions as well.
I have a couple questions, Mary. When you say if the reimbursement rate from the off-road gas tax is 30 to 34 cents on the dollar.
Correct.
So if we kept the 1.5 positions, what is the net cost to the general fund after the reimbursement, anticipated reimbursement from the road tax?
My calculation would be approximately $50,000.
Okay, so that's for 1.5.
Yes, that would be the cost to the county.
It's also my understanding that if we do this, there's some federal money that comes in also, is there not?
I'm unclear of that. I never receive any federal money. The employees for USDA Wildlife Services, the county pays 61% of their salary, and the USDA pays 49% of their salary. It's not funding coming into the county. The USDA pays for 49% of their salary.
Well, I'm confused, I guess. If the USDA is paying 49% of the salary,
Correct.
and then we get a gas tax reimbursement on top of that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm having a, and then plus the gas tax.
One employee, the county's responsibility is $56,000 for one employee. That is equivalent to 61% of that individual's salary with benefits. The USDA picks up the remainder, and Mr. Carlson will have to give you the figure on what that would be.
So you're saying if we keep the 1.5 position, the net cost to the county fund after USDA and after the gas tax is $50,000?
Correct.
Okay, now if we eliminate the half-time position, then how much money does that save the general fund? Would it be a third of $50,000?
If we eliminate the position, that would be, the $26,000 would be the reduction.
Well,
That would be to the general
$26,000
fund.
on the general fund, $50,000 for two.
Just a moment, that would be $26,000 to the general fund. Now, the gas tax, the unclaimed gas tax reimbursement on that would be approximately 35 cents on the dollar, so let's go with 1/3. So over, it would, $8,000 would be what comes in.
So the net cost then would be about $18,000 if we
Correct.
kept the position.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That would be,
So what we're talking about for that half-time position is $18,000 in general fund contribution. Does that sound right?
yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay, the second question I have is this question of the amount of hours that the 1.5. If you look at the hours that you stated, that basically is the equivalent of one full-time position, and yet we've been paying for 1.5 positions. So what are they doing when they're not? What's your definition of out in the field? Does that include the paperwork and the training and the and the others? Because I don't understand what's happened to the half-time position if all we're showing for hours is one full-time position.
I'd be glad to give my opinion, but I believe it would be best answered by Wade Carlson, the
Okay.
USDA district
Maybe he'll address
specialist.
that.
Would you like him to come up now to address that question?
That's up to the chair. Might see if other board members have questions.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to do this one at a time, so since it's timely, why don't we bring Mr. Carlson up?
Okay.
Wade Carlson, District Supervisor for the USDA Wildlife Services. To address that question, the hours that are reflected on that report, I just want to clarify the time frame of the report. The time frame for that report is July 1, '06 through June 30th, '07. We can only report on fiscal year that has been, all the data entry has been entered and validated. So that's the time frame for that report that you have in
But
front
didn't
of
we
you.
not have during that time frame 1.5 full-time equivalent?
Yes, you did.
Then how did we only end up with 2,000 or 2,100 hours of
The way
work?
that we report our work in the county is broken up into two different sections, basically. Those hours that are reported in there are field work that is worked on either a private agreement, private property, or a civil agreement, which would be a county agreement. And so that's why the hours that are represented there are not inclusive of training, office duties, computer data entry, sick leave, vacation, equipment repairs, training. Those types of things are not rolled up into that. The way the system works.
Do you, along with Mary, provide oversight for the one and a half time positions?
Yeah, these are my employees. I supervise them.
Okay. Even though you supervise them, even though there's USDA money, county money, and California state money and the off-road gas tax.
Correct. They are federal employees, yes, and I supervise them. We have a cooperative agreement with the county. We don't have any state funding at this time. The state...
Well, the gas tax comes through the county.
Right.
It doesn't come from the state directly into the program.
Right. The funding that's represented now, 61% is county funds, 39% are federal funds. And in 2002, the
So
state...
if 39 are federal funds, then we still have the 34 or 30, say 33% that's state funding from the gas tax, which means that there's 72% funding outside of the general fund. And the general fund then would pick up, 28%. Is that correct? So I'm always a little confused on the funding of this program.
Right. You know, the figures that you were asking about, if we just take the halftime position and look at that,
Right.
and figure the $26,000 that the county pays for that,
Right.
34 cents on the dollar, basically the net cost of that halftime position would be to the county $17,160.
Okay, but when you say the net cost to the county, I guess the
28%.
question is, does the off-road fuel tax that comes into the county, is that part of the $17,160 of the county share, so that we can then take?
No, that would be...
That's after the off-road
That's my
gas tax.
That's my understanding.
Because the off-road gas tax comes through the county from the state. It's not part of the USDA.
No, the USDA Wildlife Services Program is an eligible program to receive those funds. So
Tom, do you mind if I ask a question? Because
No, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand. I think I know what you're asking, but I'm not sure if you're indicating that the 61% paid by the county is offset by whatever revenues come in
Correct.
from the gas tax. Is that correct?
61% is offset by the gas tax.
Okay, so-
they put up 61% up front, and then they receive back
And then whatever the gas tax is, that would reduce that 61% to whatever level the county's actually paying out of their general fund.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Okay. So when you say that the cost of the county, $17,160, that's after the gas tax has been taken into account, the
That's-
off-road gas tax. Is that correct, Mary? In your opinion?
Yes, that is correct, and we must realize that the gas tax comes the following fiscal
Okay.
year.
Okay, but that's every year, so we're in the
Yes, it is every
cycle,
year.
so okay, then I want to go back and have just a little more clarification on the hours. Because if you look at 2,100 hours, I think a full-time equivalent position for the county is
2080.
how much?
2080.
2,080 hours. And out of that, we do take sick leave and vacation time. Is that correct? That's not net of it. That's
Correct.
gross.
That's gross.
Okay, so you're basically saying by the time you take sick leave, by the time you take vacation, by the time you do all the book work and the computer entries, which there's a lot of computer entries on all this stuff now where there's so much documentation, that's why you're showing 1.5 positions ends up being 2,100 hours in the field.
Yeah, it's
By the time you take out sick leave, vacation, and then all the paperwork and training.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, what you're seeing is
understand.
just
Let me just
field
ask you this, and then I'll ask Mary this. What, in your opinion, would be the consequence to the county of eliminating the halftime position?
The consequence would be, obviously, you wouldn't be able to maintain that same level of service that we're providing to the county, to the residents. It would depend on what the county wanted to cut out of that program. We're talking about public safety work that we do. Of the, work that we do, 47 of those service visits were human health and safety related. And we also provide a technical assistance program. That's a service that we provide to the residents without actually doing control work. We give them recommendations.
You said the 47 public health and safety. I mean, it's always been called sort of predator animal control, which is a misnomer because it's more than bears, lions, coyotes, bobcats, things killing other animals.
Yeah, there's a public safety aspect to that.
Define that for me, or explain that, what that component is.
We do public safety and health work related to all wildlife species. Quite common in the county is rabies surveillance. We do a fair amount of work controlling skunk population when there's a concern for rabies. It's concerned with mountain lion public safety. We've had a mountain lion public safety incident within this last year around the Mountain Ranch area where a lion was taken because it had killed a house cat actually in the mobile home where this cat was while the resident was in that mobile home. She came out, found the lion there that had come through the window to kill the house cat, found the lion in her home, and we were able to capture that lion. So there's a public safety aspect that goes along with this position. The position that you're talking about eliminating is my employee that works in Amador half-time and Calaveras half-time. He has dogs that are trained to pursue mountain lions and deal with these type of public safety situations. So what you're talking about is possibly the unavailability of those dogs to respond to a public safety situation. And when you have a human fatality or injury, you need dogs to track that animal.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. That completes my questions.
Other board questions?
Can you tell me more about this, how that we share this individual with Amador County? If we were to cut back on that, would that kind of cause a domino effect over in Amador County too, that they would have to pick them up full time, or how's that going to work?
Well, it's not going to work. We would have to furlough that employee. Basically, his funding would be half-time there. The other half-time, he would be furloughed.
Are there any questions or comments from the public?
I've got one.
Okay, come up one at a time, please. State your name and sign in.
My name's Glenn Loafing, and I live in Golden Hill subdivision, and I know a lot of ranchers. And we have a lot of problems with critters because they're getting overpopulated, especially mountain lions. In my area, in the Golden Hill subdivision, if it wasn't for these guys, people that take it in their own hands. And we can't do that. We can't track these animals down. These guys can. And for what I hear they're paying him, that is cheap for the safety of our kids and our animals. I don't see why we're even here. This is very cheap for what these guys do. I've had the opportunity to watch these guys on a ranch. They work very hard. They earn their money. There's guys that that use a weed eater that makes more money than these guys do. And I think we should keep them. They're very, very, they're a good tool for our community to keep our animals in control. I love animals. I'm glad the mountain lions are there, but when we leave them alone, they get overpopulated. A mountain lion can have as high as up to 8 kittens a year. And when they get overpopulated, they come to town. They look for food. And if there's a kid in the way, they can take them. We had an incident over there that luckily they trapped a mountain lion. And my daughter had seen the lion leave, and this was broad daylight. And that's rare for a mountain lion to do that. And usually, what I know a little bit, I got a PhD in the Discovery Channel, so I can speak with some authority. That means they're overpopulated. And I like to see them here. It's like I'll probably never see an elephant in the wild. But I know they're there, and I'm glad they're there, and I hope we can preserve all that. But we need to keep everything in control. And that's what I have to say. And these guys earn their money. We need to leave them there. That's cheap for this county or any other county.
Thank you, Glenn.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Young, and I live in West Point. Firsthand, on these mountain lions, I've had 2 goats killed within 6 months apart. I have little toy fox terriers, which to me and my wife, being our age, are like kids. I feel is if we get rid of one trapper in this county, and if there's an incident at the southern part of the county and one at the northern part of the county, in West Point, where I live, it's not going to be covered. By first-hand knowledge, I mean that once there's a kill, whether it's any kind of livestock, you have to set your traps, set your dogs, whatever you have to do immediately. The lions are fresh meat eaters, meaning that they're going to make a kill, they're going to bury it, they're going to leave, they're going to come back later. The first kill at my place, my wife and I found the goat at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was missing. I called the sheriff at the non-hotline. It was on a Saturday. Everything was closed. They got a hold of Department of Fish and Game. I was told that if you're going to go look for the lion, make sure you're armed or leave it to the professionals. I went down to the lumber yard and got some ammunition, come back, started looking for the carcass, and the Wildlife Service showed up. By the time we found and uncovered the carcass and I made arrangements to set the cage that the Wildlife Services had set, he had left and told me if the lion does not come back by Tuesday, then it won't come back at all because they're a fresh kill eater. I have a boom lift at my property, it goes up 50 feet. I figured I'm going to catch this lion, whether it's in the trap or by a firearm. While I'm maneuvering this piece of equipment, still daylight, at 4 o'clock the afternoon of the kill on a Saturday, I happened to look over and I seen this thing waving in the brush. And I said, it's too early. The trapper told me that it was be Tuesday before it come back. because I was going to spend all night out there and protect my goats. After I had this piece of machinery set, I went back down, walked up to where the cage was. That lion was in the cage at 5:30. Showed you how fast that lion had come back for his kill. He was watching me mess with his dinner. Made me a little nervous. Point being is that 1.5 trappers in this county, in my opinion, is not enough. 6 months later, I had another kill. We got him at 6 o'clock in the morning. The lions and the public have to live together along with all animals. But cutting back on the protection for the safety of the public, me, my wife, my little dogs, my animals, I didn't buy a livestock to lock them up. I have taken precautions, cyclone fence, barbed wire, razor wire on the top, to protect the animals, but I did not buy these livestock to leave them locked up and look at them like a kiddie zoo. I bought them for weed protection, or weed eating, for the fire protection for my house, and now I'm literally going out in the field without being armed, because I have 5 goats left, and I lost 2 in 6 months in West Point. Total from July of last year, I can count 7 around the West Point area. One trapper's not going to handle it. I don't think 1.5 can handle it. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here today. Are there other people who wish to speak to this issue?
I'm Leland Fisher. I'm a rancher, and we've had a lot of problems with mountain lions. We've killed, one night they come in, killed several goats. They went out. The mountain lion hunter went out and killed 3 lions. So the goats are locked up close to the house. And a couple days later, here comes another mountain lion. Killed another goat. He got tangled up in the hog wire fence and couldn't get it out. So we called Bill Watkins. He come down there with these dogs. He went out and killed another lion. A few days later, come right back, killed another lion. So he went out again and killed another one. And my daughter-in-law and all of us are scared to death to turn the kids out and let them go out in the yard because them lions are there. And I've been running cattle in the mountains for all my life, you might say. And I've only seen 3 lions in my life. And I asked Louis Peck, he used to be a lion hunter. I said, Louis, have you ever seen a lion out in the woods when you were just walking around looking? He said, no, I've never seen a lion until the dogs treat them. So you never see them. I know they're looking at us. I know many times I probably rode under a tree with a lion sitting up there looking at me, but he didn't happen to jump on me. But them things are vicious. I was coming down the South Fork grade one night. It was dark. The lion was on the bridge up here above West Point. That lion come out and he jumped up that bank. I don't know if you folks know where I'm talking about, but that's just a rocky hill. He leaped right up there. Them things can jump I don't know how far. And they're dangerous, and I'm scared to death that somebody's going to get killed. So that's all I got to say. I know I'm no speaker or anything, but I just wanted to let you folks know.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Hello, I'm Lori Oliver with the Calaveras County Farm Bureau, and I have a couple points to make, and I would need to start with a question. I'm under the impression that if we cut that half-time person and decide 2 years later to reinstate that person, we will not get the 39% funding from the federal government. Is that correct?
Is that correct?
That is correct. We will lose it forever, and that will become the sole financial responsibility of the county. I think that is a long-term...
I believe that is correct. Is that...
That's correct.
That's correct.
I believe that's a long-term ramification that is cause enough to not do this, but I have other points to make. As the Farm Bureau, I receive a multitude of calls. People are not quite sure what Farm Bureau is, what it represents. Some people mistake it for a government office. I have received numerous calls concerning animal control in this county. I have received hostile calls regarding animal control in this county. One person, I will not name him, but this person had coyote problems near his house, and I don't know I'm not familiar with the area, and it took me a little bit of homework to realize we were talking about 5 and 10 acre parcels. This person took it upon himself to run an ad in the paper to ask hunters to come up there and hunt those coyotes. Every Billy Bob, Joe, whatever, that's willing to pull a trigger up there in 5 and 10 acre parcels in a residential area, who maybe doesn't know the law, doesn't know safety practices, are going to be out there hunting these animals. I don't think that's in the best interest of the public at all. I think not only do you have public safety issues because of the predatory animals, now you've got irrational people reacting to the predatory animals, and I think that is a great cause for concern. So I urge all of you guys to really consider cutting this program, especially since we won't ever receive the additional funding in the future. Should we cut it now and try to bring it back later? Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
I can't answer any questions. I can't comment, but I can answer your questions. My department won't let me make a statement, so that I can answer any questions that you might have.
Come forward if you will, and we'll see if there are any questions either from the audience or from the board.
My name is, for you guys who don't know me, my name is Alan Gregory. I'm a game warden here in Calaveras County. Good morning, board.
Hi, are you the 0.5 or the 1.0?
No,
neither. Oh, you're fish and game. All right.
Well, I'm the 1.0 right now.
But Fish and Game works very closely with our animal control specialists, and Fish and Game's the ones that give the depredation permits, et cetera. What would be your feelings as to the consequences of cutting a half-time position?
There's several things. Our department has very little resources to respond to these calls as far as biologists go, our wildlife management people, the trapping aspect of these problem animals. We just don't have the resources. So it's going to put undue pressure on the game wardens in the county to respond to these skunk calls, fox calls, any wild animal call that animal control is not going to respond to. Two, the public, which is the big one, is not going to get the type of service. With the two trappers that we have in the county, even though it's a half-time position, we get very quick response. I can call Bill at any time and any day of the week. Bill, I've got a problem lion, need some help. He's there. When we only have one, Jim may be off doing something else, or may be off on vacation. We just don't have the resources with a one-position trapper. Three, the public safety aspect. Bill has hounds. Problem lions tend to, when they are a public safety problem, it's not usually an issue where you can trap. And it's generally a hound issue. They get on the scent of the lion from the area where an attack happened. Hounds chase the lion, tree it, we take care of it. That's the other big one too. I think if we look at a table of which I have back there, the amount of losses that the county sustained in livestock, property, we look at that, and that's how much was reported lost. Well, I think we have to look at how much was prevented loss from these guys working in the county, from taking care of these problem animals. These problem animals are problems because they come into close contact with people. They learn that goats and sheep are easier prey than a deer. And when a rancher has 25 sheep in a pen, lion can get in that pen, pick one off, come back 3 days later, pick another one off, and so on, until these guys get there. Or it's reported. Some ranchers don't count their animals every day. They don't keep good track of it, and that's a rancher problem. But these guys prevent a lot of loss that is not reported. We can only assume how much that might be because there's no way to tell.
You guys issue the depredation permits, et cetera. It is accurate, I believe, that like the problem bears in the campgrounds and some of the vacation rentals, et cetera, that's all handled also by our animal control specialists. Is that correct?
They've been given the authority to take care of a problem without calling us now, and I think that's a great thing. They are the experts when it comes to these problem animals. If they respond to a bear breaking into a cabin, they take care of it, call us, say, we had a problem bear. We issue a permit, strictly a paperwork documentation issue.
Thank you.
On the question of livestock predation by lions and bears, is it your impression that we're having less, the same, or more problems over time? I'm looking ahead. We're talking about cutting half a position.
Sure.
What's the trend line on this?
Since I've been here, I've probably handled about the consistent number of calls every year. I've only worked the county for 2.5 years now. But I can foresee with talking to property owners and ranchers that are splitting their properties into parcels, into these 5, 10, 20-acre parcels. All those folks want to buy goats and want to buy sheep to keep the brush down, keep the grass down. And those tend to be our biggest problems. We get a lion to come in, snatch 2, 3 sheep before the people even realize they're gone. So I think in time it's going to increase. We're not allowed to hunt mountain lions in California anymore. So the lion population has increased. It's very tough to tell. They're a very tough animal to study, so we're not 100% sure about that. But in my 6 years of being a game warden, I've seen more and more calls on these issues. That's it on that one.
All right. Any other questions? Any questions from the audience for this gentleman?
I have one question. You probably don't have the answer, but I can put it in the books anyway. I pay a lot for hunting tags, fishing tags. Why don't they, I know what I understand, the state of California takes over half of that and don't go into the fishing game. Why don't they take another percent and help these counties out or whatever and take it out of these, a lot of money. And besides, there has to be, if these lions go back eating deer, if they're as successful as I am, they're going to starve to death. That's how many lions, that's just telling you how many lions there are when they're running out of deer.
Well, the deer, that's another issue. But as far as the hunting license and tag money goes, there actually is an assembly bill going through that's going to put that money, take it away from the general fund and back into the fishing game fund. So, yes, they do.
I've talked to hatcheries that they are they're starting to put more fish because they're getting more money from the fishing game funds. And it's only half of what we used to have, and they're putting more. So that tells you that our state is taking a lot of that money where they should be putting it in places what it's meant for.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other people who wish to speak to this subject? All right. In that event, I'll bring it back to the board. Any comments at this point and any motions that people
I have a question I'd like to ask Mary. Apparently what we're talking about in general fund money here is $17,160. If the board were to instruct you, because I understand that you have an obligation to meet a 10% reduction in your budget. I guess my question to you is if the board said, well, this is not the cut we wish to make, the $17,160, how would you then meet your 10% reduction? And have you talked to Brian, since you are part of an agency, and is there any help within that agency to help hold on to this position while within the agency making the 10% reduction? Maybe that's a question I should ask Brian.
Well, at first I was calling these things options for alternatives to wildlife services, but I realize that they are now unrealistic scenarios. If I maintain the Wildlife Services contract in full,
1.5 positions.
1.5
That's what you mean by in full.
these are my scenarios. I could eliminate all 3 of the extra hire employees that I have. That would, right there, that's $46,000. However, these 3 extra hire employees bring in $70,000 worth of revenue. They do the program for the exotic insect trapping program, the Medfly, that's $22,000. They do the glassy wing sharpshooter trapping program at $30,000. And then they do the weed programs, which is another $20,000. They'll put 20, 30, and 20 together, we're at $70,000. It doesn't make sense to eliminate $46,000.
So that's not an option, so
that's not
give me
an
a
option.
viable option.
All right, go right to my third one. I would hope that I could get consent from every permanent employee in the department to take voluntary time off at 104 hours apiece. That's 13 days, that's 2.5 weeks of voluntary time off to keep the Wildlife Services program whole. And if that was not, if I could not get consent from every employee, I'd be required to eliminate the extra hire individuals and go with a layoff of someone. Every line item has been reduced.
I don't think you need 3 weeks to generate, of every employee to generate $17,000, do you?
Well, the way that we're doing the reduction is looking at the current net county cost. And last year's gas tax money is in that. And it...
Have you talked to Brian to see if there's some way within the agency to make an adjustment? Or have you?
I'll let Brian address that.
Good morning, Brian Moss, Environmental Management Agency. Actually, per direction, we cut all the departments made their necessary cuts, and was quite creative in doing that. As an example, environmental health is taking $30,000, almost $31,000 in grant funding and helping supplement the on-site sewage program to help them rehire a position that was vacated in March of this year. Air pollution is doing better with the new fees. However, there is still a general fund contribution to that program. On-site sewage was out approximately $26,000, I want to say is what the number was. So we're covering that through environmental health already. What I'm saying is that we've already looked at trying to make things whole inside of the agency by taking grant funding from here and applying it over here. So at this point, we've kind of made the cuts that we can make and still try and stay whole. Mary and I have discussed this issue as well, because she came to me and said, I've cut my travel and my training, all of the things that we can actually cut with inside of our object codes to make a difference. We've done that, and Mary's done a very good job of doing that. So we understand it's a tough decision because all of us agree with inside the agency how valid and how important the program that you're hearing about today is. And it certainly wasn't an easy decision for Mary, I know, because she came and talked to me about it, to say this is all I've really got to work with at this time. So to answer your question, Tom, I've already looked at those options and tried to make on-site sewage whole.
Well, did we not increase the fees for on-site sewage? So on-site sewage is now supposed to be a revenue neutral?
It's supposed to be revenue
fund neutral department?
It is supposed to be revenue neutral. It is
general fund, not revenue neutral, because we're bringing revenue in.
That is correct.
But a general fund neutral.
It is supposed to. However, the number of permits being issued, I hate to go back to that, but that's just a fact, are decreasing in on-site sewage, as well as what we're seeing in the environmental health line items, including water wells, As an example, water wells, at the height, we were issuing about 300 wells and 350 well permits a year. We're down to less than 200. We're seeing the same trend in on-site sewage. We're seeing the same trend in our land use accounts from TPMs and TSTMs and the like. So that, you are absolutely correct. That was the intent of increasing the fees. That has helped tremendously, or on-site sewage would have been out a great deal more money than what we're out.
Okay, I guess my own feeling is I'm very uncomfortable cutting the half-time position. I think the kicker, as the lady from the Farm Bureau pointed out, is that if we do, we will never get the 33 or 34% or whatever it is match back. So the cost of reimbursement ongoing is going to be significant. I guess my suggestion to the board would be to continue this either 1 week or 2 weeks and instruct the administrative office who's putting together the budget to work with Mary and Brian and see if we can't come up with a resolution for the Bob, thank you for being here. For the $17,000.
Is that your wallet on the desk?
Yeah. Well, you won't get $17,160 out of it, I'll tell you that. But to instruct the administrative office to take a look and see if they, either through Brian or Mary or through some other avenue, are able to address the $17,160 in order to preserve the position. And then I don't know how much time Bob would need to look at that, but if it's a week, fine, or if it's 2 weeks, then bring it back.
I'm going to take other board comments on this, but I'd also like to make one of my own to sort of frame this. I think what we're dealing with right now is a prequel to the budget discussion, and it worries me that we would take one piece of our services, consider it separate from all others, and try to make a decision before we have a full measure of what's before us. I also want to express my, I don't want to say exasperation, but my concern that we have had suggestions by at least 2 board members to utilize programs that would not force such draconian decisions on individual departments. That we've talked about the California Work Sharing Unemployment Act. We've talked about different kinds of banking of ours. We've got options that are in at least discussion at this level. Maybe it's time for this board to make some clarification to this so that the context is more fully set. I assume that happens during the budget hearings, and that so I wonder whether 1 or 2 weeks is enough time to give full measure of review.
I think the reason this is before us and out of the budget sequence is there's a contract due date with the USDA for the 1 or the 1.5 time positions, and I believe that contract due date's the 1st of July. Is that correct, Mary?
Essentially, that's correct. The USDA needs to know how to manage their workforce like we need to know how to manage our workforce.
Okay.
And they need to start planning whether it's going to be a furlough or not a furlough. They need to know whether to schedule for 1.5 employee or one employee.
Okay, but the deadline for that's the 1st of July?
The agreement begins July 1st.
Begins. So we need something the latter
They
part of
need
June.
some
And we
sort of
don't start preliminary budget deliberations, I think, until the 24th. Is that
24th with a tentative
so
budget.
I think we're going to have to make some kind of call here.
Well, or would an interim agreement suffice to be able to allow us the time to do this properly? Is there a way to do this incrementally, at least extend for the existing agreement for some period so that we can do this in the time necessary to get a full resolution?
I don't have an answer for that. However, I would think if we had the funding to pay for the 1.5 employee for 3 months, I believe USDA would be agreeable to that. Does USDA have a comment on that?
Is that a possibility? Is anybody here in authority to answer that?
This gentleman is.
Normally what happens is a letter of intent is sent to our state office, what the county intends to do. And then we understand that, final budgets aren't, put together until, much later than the July 1 deadline and that. So I think what our state office will require is a letter of intent on which direction you propose to go.
Can we do it for an interim period, like for 3 months, and then say we will have a decision within 3 months and continue paying for the extra half-time position for that 3-month period?
I would need to talk with our state
director.
director.
A commitment for a fiscal year?
Yeah, I would need to talk with our state director because the way the county agreements are for one-year periods. So I would need to ask if there would be an exemption made to put in.
How long would it take to get an answer to that?
Today.
All right. Well, that may give us some ideas about when to reschedule this, but let's hear from the other board members and see where you what your pleasure is.
Well,
Bill and then Russ.
It's been an interesting conversation, and like I believe my colleagues and perhaps the rest of you folks, I understand the hard work and the dilemma that these departments are into trying to find a way to make a budget work in trying times. And so, Mary and Brian both, I appreciate you coming up with options to provide this board to make some decision. But at this point, I have to say that I cannot support a reduction in this service, just based upon the demographics of both people and predatory animals and that trend in this county. The statement was made that these animals are starting to, they procreate and they have, somebody said, 6 or 8 kittens to a lion, and bears, of course, are a big problem as well, and coyotes, and they're starting to encroach on the cities or towns, starting to come to town. Well, let's face it, folks, every week you can read in the newspaper or see on the news about our growth here, and the procreation is even more so on the human side, and so the towns are going to these habitats as well. And there is no way that this problem or this dilemma is going to decrease, and I just can't see cutting back on the service that's going to help not only the agricultural community, but the health and safety considerations where people are afraid to let their children go outside and this and that. You know, of course, I'm not a rancher, but I've lived here for a long time, and I know several ranchers. And I can tell you, just in conversations with them over the past 10 or 20 years even, there's a steady increase in the predatory nature. I have a friend who last year lost over 50 animals between goats and sheep and calves. And that's just one rancher. As a matter of fact, this particular person told me that last year, mid-morning, he saw a mountain lion take down a sheep right outside of his window from his home across the county road, perhaps 75 or 80 yards away. It was the most amazing thing. So they're not only on the increase, these animals are coming to the buffet, and there's no reason why they should not. I just can't imagine cutting this service. If I were to support anything at all, and the budget were there too, I would support increasing it. The point that the Farm Bureau and made and Tom reiterated about losing this money, the long-term implications of losing the 39%, whatever it was, for the gas tax coming into here, that is something I can't see the wisdom of doing. I am hoping that somewhere for $17,100 we can come up with a way to save this program. And so I'm not in support of reducing the service at this time.
I'm going to go right down the line. Marita?
This is, as the chair mentioned, this is a funding issue. And what we're trying to do is reduce costs to the general fund. And last week we had 2 agencies come to us talking about their reduced funding. And we're going to have all the departments and agencies coming to us saying reduce funding. And this board's going to have to make the difficult decisions. And if this becomes or is a high priority for this board, then when we are in budget deliberations, then we will cut $17,000 from some department somewhere to find the funding for it. But every time a department or an agency comes to us and says, you know, I'm down to bone, or I'm cutting into bone, I mean, that's what we're here for, is to make those financial decisions. And we can, last week when we had 2 agencies here before us, oh my gosh, you can't do it and we can support you. You know, somewhere we're going to have to make the decision. I support the idea of doing something on a preliminary basis, whether it's 1 month or 2 months. This is an issue that's faced with USDA throughout California. I'm sure we're not alone in this. But we cannot ask our department heads and our CAO to come up with a balanced budget for us unless we also are supportive of trying to do that. And if we think this is more important and it's got to come out of environmental health than septic inspections or the glassy wing sharpshooter or whatever, then those are the decisions that we will make at preliminary budget. I do not like piecemealing budget dollars. And it's just like Steve said. I mean, it's easy for when people come in and wring their hands to say, oh my gosh, and we're not going to do it. But when we're looking at the total package and we're looking at $2 million cut in the general fund, and we're asking departments to come up with cuts, then somewhere we're going to have to be supportive of what is done. And whether it's this 17,000 or somebody else's ox is getting gored, then we will decide that when we're in budget hearings. So what I would support is pushing this out for 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever the department and the chair agreed to, and fund it for a 2-month period. But we're now dipping into next year's general fund money. So I understand it's important. So are the ones we heard last week important. So are the ones that we're going to be hearing in another week or 2. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Supervisor Thomas.
It occurs to me that since Bob Lawton started this problem, that he should go out and buy some dogs.
I've got one, but she only weighs about 16 pounds.
That's bait.
Yes, we use that one for the traps.
Don't tell my wife.
I certainly don't want to trivialize this, but I'm very much in favor of finding a way to fund this, too. It seems to me it's a penny wise and a pound foolish to save $17,000 and lose $39,000 or whatever it was in the federal matching that we wouldn't get back. So I'm not in favor of reducing this. I'm not knowledgeable enough about where we might be able to have cost savings to pay for it, but I'm willing to go along with the idea of postponing this decision until somebody can come back and show us a way to do it, or recommend a way to do it.
All right. I have a comment as well. As you may have noticed, many of the people who spoke to this issue came from District 2, where we've had increasing problems and some very close encounters that have worried a lot of people. So I don't view this as an issue that's going to go away. I see it as an escalating one for a variety of reasons, including growth patterns and, planning issues and all of that. I have real strong concerns for our ranchers who are suffering pretty high losses. So I try to sort of weigh out cost benefit when we talk about, when we think about it internally in a departmental level. We're trying to save $17,000. If we're weighing the offsets, we're giving up long-term money that we're getting from other sources, and we are potentially increasing losses, especially to commercial operations. The speed, there's only about 24 hours, usually less, about 12 hours to really pick up a scent. And the problem has been that if you're waiting, you've got one person strung between, huge distances, the chances of having multiple challenges in around ranches is going to be heightened by one less person and not operating with dogs. the amount of losses that will accrue in a single couple of months on this would be far greater than what we would be saving. I do not underestimate the weight and the burden that is falling upon our departments and this Board of Supervisors related to the budget that we're now facing. It's not fake. People who have heard some governmental agencies cry wolf over years and say, well, we just can't get more efficient, we're cutting to bone, and then turn out that we can actually get through it and services maintained. That's not what we're facing right now. We're facing genuine cuts to important services, and we're going to be hearing from different constituencies in terrible contention. So I want to reiterate my point that in order for a board to make good public policy, it's going to be very essential that we're able to consider all the things and all the constituencies concurrently through a process, and we call that a budget hearing. And we are headed for those, I guess, on, what are their dates?
24th, 25th.
24th and 25th of this month. And in my view, that would be the appropriate venue for this, for that full consideration. And knowing that we've got deadlines, I would agree with what Marita has said, which is that I think we should find out whether we can do an extension. I would certainly support that. I do not want to cut this program, and I certainly don't want to irretrievably give up funds that are for such an essential service from other sources. So I would hope that within a couple of weeks and before our budget hearing, we could have some answers to the questions that are unanswered as of today. So I would entertain at this point a motion, if people were interested, in having this come back before the board in 2 weeks with full answers as to a 2 to 3 month extension, staying within this fiscal year. I guess it would have to go no later than June. Well, actually, it's not that many
It goes
months.
into next fiscal year for us.
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. So we would need to take a look at what funds we currently have to be from this budget to be able to tide us through into the necessary time to be able to make a full budgetary decision.
My sense, just let the administrative office come back in 2 weeks with a recommendation, and you will have a determination in the next couple of days as to whether a continuance is a viable option.
That would, I think, be
and
certainly.
I'll also move that.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. I would just comment before voting on this that it appears that there's a strong sentiment on the part of this board to continue this program in its current staffing, and that we would hope that the administration would come back with a solution to this dilemma. Yeah. All right.
They can't just take a ticket and stand in line.
Yes. All right. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good luck and good work to you. We now move to item number 10. This is public hearing and possible board action on a zoning amendment for Lawrence Smith.
Good morning.
Lauren?
I'm Lauren Felice, Planner 3, here today for Bob Selman, our Planning Director, who was unable to make the meeting due to a family emergency. The request before you is a zoning amendment to accommodate a boundary line adjustment of a non-conforming parcel as to size and land use. The boundary line adjustment will fix the size issue. The zoning amendment will address the land use that currently exists, which was the wine tasting. The request is moved forward to the supervisor level from the Planning Commission with an approval, and we would request that it be approved at this time as well. Any comments or questions from the board?
Hearing none, is there any public comment? We need to open the public hearing, which I now do. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak in this public hearing? Nobody wishes to enter anything further on the record. In that case, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I would move that the board adopt an ordinance to approve application 2006-182 for a zoning amendment to rezone from RR5 and from RR to RA5 the entire 3.56 acre adjusted parcel 1 based upon the findings of the Planning Commission as amended.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you.
Welcome on board, young lady. It's nice to have you here.
Yes.
Thanks, Lauren.
I believe that was the first presentation. This will now move us to item number 11. And this is a discussion and possible action regarding a minute order supporting modification of the EMS transport services billing rates for Ebbets Pass Fire District. Marita, did you have something you wanted to say first on this? After presentation?
Brian talks, but this is an issue for the ambulance service in the Ebbets Pass corridor. Ebbets Pass Fire District has the contract for ambulance service in that corridor, and they have to go through a process being approval of their board. Well, why don't I just let the Assistant Fire Chief, Brian Dixon, respond to those questions, who used to work with my husband. I mean, that's just a part of trivia.
I was
a
wee pup in East Palo Alto. Her husband was one of my first captains. That was 30 years ago. Anyway.
Well, welcome to the board.
Welcome to the real world. Brian Dixon, the Assistant Chief of the Ebbets Pass Fire Protection District, and I'm coming before you folks today just to give you a real brief history. The Ebbets Pass Fire District established in 1965, but in 1998 we took on first responder paramedic services, and in 2002 we began to provide transport services and became the exclusive provider of those transport services in July 1st of 2005, all through the competitive bid process. We cover the east zone of Calaveras County, which is the exact same cookie cutter as the Ebbets Pass Fire Protection District boundaries. In addition, we do provide mutual aid services to our partners, American Legion Ambulance, which we, over this past calendar year, we've had 50 scene calls, which we took care of for American Legion, and we also provided 49 lengthy postings in the American Legion zone when all their units were busy. So what we're asking for today, basically, in the process of us modifying our rates, is we have first to get approval from the Ebbets Pass Fire Protection District Board, and that took place on May 20th of 2008. The next step in the procedure is to obtain permission from this body and then move on to the Mountain Valley Emergency Medical Services Board, which Supervisor Claudino is one of the 5 members on that board. There's members from Alpine, Amador, Stanislaus, and Mariposa County, one supervisor from each of the JPA counties in the EMS agency. Ebbets Pass Fire last modified our transport services in August of 2004, and we are funded primarily by special taxes, and we have an agreement, or as part of the special taxes with our citizens, we do not charge anything out of pocket to the residents. Basically, we charge the insurance companies, and we accept assignment from the insurance companies to regenerate our revenue for our supplies, for our fuel, for the quarters, and actually we pay 3 salaries for firefighter paramedics out of the revenue generated from insurance companies. In the last 4 years, insurance companies have modified the way that they pay out. 4 years ago, there was a substantial base rate pay, and then there was a mileage pay, and you were paid. Other insurance companies have eliminated the base rate and downscaled that significantly, and they want to know itemized services and supplies. And so basically this modification that we're asking for today would make us an exact par. We are asking for what American Legion is currently charging. Okay, so you see attachment A is the current Ebbets Pass fire rates, And attachment B is the current American Legion rates, and those are the rates that we want to do exactly what our partners do. Exactly, and that way all the rates in Calaveras County are identical. And our program where we accept assignment is very similar to American Legion's subscription program where you can buy an ambulance ticket, which I think is $75 now. I'm not here to talk about Legion services, but this makes us a par and equal to American Legion.
And Brian, excuse me for interrupting, but did I also read that you honor each other's commitments to tickets?
Yes. If a citizen somewhere outside of the East Zone in Calaveras County has an ambulance ticket, then when we transport them, then we honor the accept assignment. We take what the insurance company pays us, and that's payment in full with our district. Likewise, if American Legion, the one time that they have done a transport for us in the last 3 years, they did accept assignment for the one transport they did for us.
So you're raising your actual transport up to the level that is being charged by American Legion. That's the one-time, that's the response fee. But other than that, you're just coming up to their level with services, equipment, and supplies.
All the items.
Service, supplies, and
And then you build the insurance company and you take the assignment.
take the assignment.
Thank you.
Some insurance companies pay you substantially on the base rate, but they don't pay you anything for itemized. Others pay you very little for the base rate, but they'll pay you substantially for the itemized. So it's a teeter-totter, and we're just catching up. We haven't adjusted ourselves in 4 years.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? And we'll follow with comments from the public. Nothing up here? Yes, Russ?
This doesn't have to do directly with this, but Brian, I've admired looking at your operation up there, and just was curious about the incident that we had at the fair where the people were injured. How many units did you folks?
We immediately dispatched our 2 on-duty 24/7 staff units to the fair. We immediately got on the phone, called back in. We had our 2 reserve medic units staffed within 15 minutes. We took one of those with a paramedic engine. Actually, I was the paramedic on the engine. And we went down to the community Murphy's set. We had a paramedic engine company and one of our paramedic transport units in Murphy's set to cover pretty much Angels Camp, the South Zone. And we still had a second reserve unit that came in to cover the Evans Pass Fire District, with the addition of medic engine 435, which still remain in the community of Arnold. So, yeah, we're a full player in the mutual aid system.
Yeah, please allow us to compliment your duty that day. Everybody did a great job, and your department certainly proved its worth.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts that day.
Anybody from the public wish to comment on this item? In that case, we'll bring it to the board for action.
I sort of find it sort of frustrating. The Ebbets Pass board, who was elected, had to approve it. But then comes the Board of Supervisors, who has to approve it. And then it goes to EMS, who have the final say on approving it. Sort of like, are you sure this is really what you want to do, Brian?
The EMS board will be June 11th at Saddle Creek.
I move the minute order supporting the modifications to the billing rates for Ebbets Pass Fire District.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
5-0, and Marita has
Yes,
a comment as
I
well.
want to recognize Chief Warren Wilkes, who's in the audience. Sorry, Chief. Warren is choosing to retire, and it's very hard for me because he and I have had a lot of contact over the years that we've worked together, and it's truly been a pleasure to work with the Chief on many issues in the Ebbets Pass corridor, and I want to thank you for being a team player with me. I appreciate it, as do the residents.
Chief, if you could stand for a moment, I think we need to.
Thank you. I'm very excuse I didn't come down here for this. I'm trying to make my transition as quiet and as...
Not till you finish the driveway issue, Chief.
If I do, I'm always looking forward. I want to introduce our new fire chief to the Board of Supervisors, and if you don't mind,
Of course.
Mr. Dave Walker is going to take over July 1st for us, and And he's a refreshing breath of air compared to what I've been. He's a leader. If you knew his background, you'd know what I'm talking about. But we won't skip a beat, I promise you that. And we're leaving it in good hands. So this is a big positive.
Well, he's got some big shoes to fill.
Thank you, Brian. Chief to be looks forward to working with you.
All right, we'll now move to item 12. This is a discussion and possible action on a minute order approving a contract with Cyril R. Ash for conflict public defender services from August 1, 2008 through July 31, 2009. He was in the...
He's in and
He's
out.
come and gone several times.
Yeah.
I was hoping he'd be here because I wanted to say something positive about his
Well, you're recommending this, and you drafted it. Also move, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right, there's a motion, a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Tell him he wasn't able to talk himself out of it. He wasn't here. Do a cut.
Just a question, sidebar, on Jim. Have his cases been increasing? Because they had been for...
They've trended upward, yes, they have.
Yeah, there's been a lot of...
It's the years I've been doing
Since he,
this.
yeah.
Been doing it a long time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think staffing was pretty much flatlined for him.
He's a very capable man.
Yeah, I remember 3. All right. Well, now it's the moment I'm sure you've all been waiting for. This is the code compliance section of our agenda, item 13. We have actually 3 code compliance issues before us. Mr. Barr.
Good morning. Todd Barr, Supervising Code Compliance Officer. The first case deals with code compliance case 0806 regarding violations of county code by Alan Nordstrom. This case initiated in March of 2003 when there was construction on site being done without permits, including the installation of a septic system that did not have permits and also junk and debris. The case carried into March of 2008 when it was noted and the property owner was informed that he needed to reinstate his permits and final his permits and also clean up the junk and debris on his property, and he failed to respond.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Barr? Is there anybody in the room that wishes to speak to this item, number 13? All right. I guess we'll take it to the board for possible action. I believe a number of these are in Supervisor Claudino's district, I'm pleased to say.
We didn't pick on District 2 this time.
All right, clean her up. Well, I'm in full support of the recommendation from the code compliance. This is a case that has been ongoing for 5 years and has had little, if any, response and certainly no action taken. So it practically leaves no choice to the county but to enforce this. And if there's no other comments, I'm ready to make a motion.
Any other comments? All right.
Yeah, I'd like to, along with the recommendations of the code compliance, pass a motion to adopt the findings as presented that a public nuisance exists under Calaveras County Code Section 8.06.375 through a violation of Calaveras County Code 17.06.1030, junk, and Calaveras County Code 8.06.340, visual blight, Calaveras County Code 8.06.290, public nuisance, Uniform Building Code 106.1, permits required. Also pass a motion to impose an administrative fine of $7,900. The fine is to be reduced to zero if all violations are abated before expiration of appeals. Also pass a motion that the County of Calaveras Code Compliance Unit is authorized to abate any remaining code violations upon the expiration of appeals. And pass a motion that all administrative costs, administrative fines, abatement costs, and future costs are to be assessed as a lien on the real property, such as parcel number 070042015 per Calaveras County Code 8.06.590 pursuant to Government Code 25845.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0.
Todd, just a quick, when do you mail this out so that they know, so they have the 20 days to appeal to the courts?
They actually get a packet prior to the administrative hearing,
Right.
and then after that, they receive a statement of decision of the administrative hearing board with all their rights to appeal and everything on it. So the day after the administrative hearing, it would be the answer. They have the full packet.
So my question is, they have not appealed this to the board?
No, they have not.
So why does it even have to come to the board? I know I have asked this question before.
Yes, that's what we're currently trying to rework
That's
in
right.
the code.
Thank you. Got it. Thank you.
We're on our way there, but
Yes.
not
As a
yet.
matter of fact, I have a meeting right after this to
Great.
talk
That's what we
Thank
call
you.
traveling, hopefully.
We are looking forward to that moment. Now comes the case under item 14 of Mark Freeborn.
Yes, code compliance case 0807. Again, this case started a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, in April of 2005. Involves junk and debris visible from the right-of-way and from the adjoining parcels. Mr. Freeborn was noticed on several occasions concerning visual blight and the junk and debris and failed to respond, and at this point still is not in compliance.
Is anybody present to speak to this issue? All right, bringing back to the board.
Okay,
What's your pleasure? This looks to be another District 1.
Yeah.
We haven't
This case has been ongoing since 2005, and with a lot of these cases, sometimes the actual proof of contact is difficult to make. But in this, as in the other cases, you actually did have contact when a notice is returned or not picked up. Your department, your agents go out and they actually post the property, but you have had contact with Mr. Freeman as well.
Yes.
And so even at that, over a period of quite some time, several months or a couple of years, there has been no progress here. Is that correct? Yeah. On that case, unless there's further comment, I'm prepared to make a motion to support the recommendations. Okay, I'll make a movement to pass a motion to adopt the findings as presented that a public nuisance exists under Calaveras County Code Section 806-375 through a violation of Calaveras County Code 17-04-210, junk, debris, and junk cars, and Calaveras County Code 17-04-170, dead storage of mobile homes and recreational vehicles. Dead storage?
Yes. Dead storage is when it's sewer and electrical are all unhooked.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Pass a motion to impose an administrative fine of $7,350. The fine is to be reduced to zero if all violations are abated before the expiration of appeals. Pass a motion that the County of Calaveras Code Compliance Unit is authorized to abate any remaining code violations upon the expiration of appeals. And finally, pass a motion that all administrative costs, administrative fines, abatement costs, and future costs are to be assessed as a lien on the real property, APN 070-042-015, for Calaveras County Code 806-590, pursuant to Government Code 25845.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. And now, hitting the trifecta, also in District 1, when it comes to the case of John B. Overton, Jr.
Yes, this is code compliance case 0809, and I'd like to clarify from the beginning here that this case actually involves two administrative citations. One citation issued by Public Works and one citation that was issued by the Code Compliance Unit. This case was referred to Code Compliance in October of 2007 after the property owner failed to respond to 5 correction notices that were issued by the building department. Mr. Overton was again informed of the immediate need for erosion control and fencing on the property at that time. Minimal erosion control measures were taken and a fence placed around the property. Over the next few months, Mr. Overton continued to work on the property beyond the scope of approved plans and despite the numerous stop work orders that have been issued. The Code Compliance Unit continued to receive complaints, and Public Works inspected the site on January 24, 2008 to address the grading and stormwater violations. Public Works found no valid permit, inadequate compaction, insufficient setbacks, and absence of engineered design for the retaining walls. At that point, an administrative citation was issued by Public Works, and Code Compliance Unit also issued an administrative citation concerning the absence of a swimming pool enclosure and the absence of required permits. The administrative hearing was held on April 27, 2008. I believe Mr. Overton and a representative of his are here, and I know that they wish to speak to the amount of the fine that the Administrative Hearing Board had imposed in this case. John?
Yes, come up and make your presentation. We will enter discussion on it.
Hi, my name is John Overton. Hi, Bill. I spoke with you one time on the phone in the past. I expressed my concern about this issue. I'm the owner of 2695 Vista del Lago. Do you guys have this packet?
Yes, we do.
You do, okay. Because I'll be making a couple references.
Yes, if you could refer by page number.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, to date, we do have an approved set of plans with the county, meaning we do have a building plan, truss calcs, energy calcs, structural and lateral engineering, etc. This is, as of right now, approved, just to let you know. So we are really trying to get this house built. We've been working on these plans for quite some time. I bought this lot in 2005. Had a lot of trouble with the county's plan checking, Veritas. Had to go back and forth, several different plan checks, but made some progress there. We also did have an approved grading plan from the beginning. We did not do any real work before we had a plan. A grading plan, it was pretty basic, and I get the feeling that they were upset when we just kept doing grading, and eventually they felt that it was out of the scope, and that's what that is about. So the county did require us to get a new grading plan and erosion plan, which we have already submitted. It is in the county, and as of right now, to my knowledge, it's not approved yet, but as soon as I'm done here, I'm going over there. It might be approved right now. I'm pretty sure the erosion control plan's approved. But like I said, we do not have real building permits at this time because the county requires us to finish grading as per the new grading plan, which is not a lot of work. We've pretty much done everything that we need to do. This project has been ongoing since the issuance of our first grading permit in 2006, and we have been more than patient in obtaining our permits. Every day that goes by puts us further and further over budget, and we really need to expedite this process. We feel the building department has almost been dragging their feet at some times and almost creating the very problems for which we are being scrutinized. And if delaying this isn't enough, now the community development is imposing from what I believe is $19,650 fine, plus or minus I see a $7,600 fine and a $12,050 fine. Not quite sure if that's all combined or one thing or not, but it's a lot of money to me. And this is coming from 3 specific issues for not being in compliance. I'm here today to address these issues specifically and demonstrate that we are in fact in compliance and have been for the majority of this project's duration. Okay, now the first thing I want to respond to, in response to Calaveras County Code, I don't know if you want me to read all this, but I'll do it right now. 8 points.
Are you in this packet, Mr. Overton?
Oh, okay. I'm not really.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to know if you were, so that we can.
No, I'm not reading that.
Okay, that's fine.
Out of the bag, this is my notes. This is in response to Calaveras County Code 8.06.375 through a violation of the Calaveras County Code 15.05.070, which is grading permit. Also, California Building Code 108.4.1 permits. Like I said, our first grading permit is going on 2 years old now. So the county required us to resubmit a new plan, more reflective of the changes we have made that are beyond the scope of the first permit. We have since submitted a new erosion control plan and a completely redone grading plan, which to my knowledge are still awaiting approval. There's nothing we can do right now to speed up this process. We have not been working for 6 months now. This has come with additional inconveniences such as theft and vandalism. We cannot leave a drop of gas in any gas tank because it will be siphoned. All my trucks have been broken into, and I have had several $1,000s in tools stolen, and they are right now in the police impound. My hats off to Detective Rick DiBasilio and the Calaveras County Sheriff's Department for catching the criminals involved. We also evidently have a problem with squatters. Just the other day when Frank and I were doing some cleanup at the lot, Frank found 3 hypodermic needles who I just assume are either used for meth or heroin. And I just want to know if this is really what the county's plans are for us, to just draw this out forever and make a, I don't know. I mean, I know that's not good for the community. Like I said, if you have any more questions about the plan or the actual fact that we don't have permits, Steve Buckley's here today. He's been working. I've hired him, I think, sometime in December. We've been working on it, so it takes a while to get a good plan that they wanted specifically. And it's very, this grading plan we just put out is very specific. Most people, when they do a grading plan, I've seen them just handwrite it, and usually they don't care. When I built in Stockton, I don't think they even looked at our grading plan. But this is an entirely different project. But just to let you know, we have a real professional plan done. It is in right now. Now, the other issue, the second one that we're being fined about, this is in response to Calaveras County Code 8.06.375 through a violation of the Calaveras County Code 15.05.170. This is erosion control, or erosion and sediment control. Throughout this project, erosion control has been very important, and we have had sufficient measures in place at almost all times, with the exception of when we have been actually moving large amounts of dirt. You can't really have straw and wattle down when you've got a big tractor moving the dirt around. It is impossible to have adequate erosion down at the same time trying to do work in the same area. We have spent nearly $40,000 on straw wattle, jute mat, straw seed, silt fence, and labor, specifically for erosion control on this project. We feel that the inspectors, mainly Shelley Prater, have made unreasonable demands in the past while we were in the middle of grading. This has cost us several thousands in wasted dollars and ruined erosion control materials and labor. Despite these demands being unreasonable, we have followed the inspector's instructions to a T and do have an erosion control plan submitted and approved. This is the past one, I'm sorry. And we are planning on completing all work for the new plan, which isn't very much. The lot right now is very solid. There's so much erosion control on there, it's probably not even funny. And just for example, we have new erosion control down right now, new wattle, a lot of new straw. And that was placed about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We just put some extra erosion control down. Last week, Frank was at the lot, and Shelley Prater came there and told Frank that all the wattle was old and the jute mat was old and would have to be replaced. And I had just bought this stuff. Just bought it. And she wanted us to replace it. And I'm like, well, whatever. We can't do it. We're not even supposed to be really working right now. So I kind of just tried to not listen to her. We had just replaced it weeks earlier. We feel Shelley is either incompetent or being malicious. Either way, we would appreciate a new inspector be appointed to our project. We just can't replace thousands of dollars of erosion control materials every time Shelley feels that they are old. We have already done this before. In fact, she has told us so many times that the stuff's old, and I'm young and I'm naive and I just believe whatever she says and I just do it, because I don't want any problems. I'm trying to get my house built. I try to do everything they tell us to do. It costs a ton of money. It's not a big deal. I'll take care of it. Had Shelley attended the first meeting, which happened, Todd Barr was discussing it, she wasn't even there, and I couldn't even address anything. I don't even believe she's here today. And she's the main reason why I'm even here, because of her her citations in the first place. Almost all these citations are from Shelley. Let's see here. Yeah, and if Shelley was here, we would definitely be able to address this issue with more clarity. Last year, I hired Steve Buckley to help me with an erosion plan that would make the inspectors happy. We have since finished this plan and implemented the changes. And while Shelley may feel that our materials are old, they are very new. I should know I pay for this stuff, and it is not cheap. If you have any questions about erosion control, feel free to ask Steve. He has the knowledge to assist in this matter. So that takes care of two of these things. Now we're going on to the third one. In response to Calaveras County Code 8.06.375, through a violation of the Calaveras County Code 15.05.290 or California Building Code 3109.4.4.3, which would be swimming pool enclosure, or as the county says, it is just a corrective action. But this is clearly talking about the fact that we removed the fence around the pool. Our site has had a fence around the pool since February 07. The fence was removed sometime between February 28th and March 6th. Now, I would like to refer, let's see, did I even write the page down for that one here? Page 35 and 36. We're going to have to look at both those pages. Now you can see on February 28th we got a fence there. And these are their pictures. These aren't our pictures. I mean, I know when that fence was gone, but just in case, you don't have to believe me. You can see your own pictures. And then March 6th, it's clearly gone. But on February 28th, it's there. This is the only time the fence was removed, despite, what was his name? I can't remember the guy's name, but never mind. That's not important. Yeah, in contrast with the county's claim that we have not had a fence since February 08th, and that is clearly what we've been fined for, $50 a day since February 08th. It's clear that the fence is there on February 28th. That's quite a discrepancy. The reason why the fence was removed was that money was becoming an issue and that we were trying to cut some costs. And since our permits were taking so long, we felt that, well, if we're not going to be working, maybe we could get rid of the toilet or get rid of a fence or something. Frank Guzman spoke with Shelley Prater. Okay, this is my testimony. And he's here too as well to talk about this. Shelley explicitly said that it would be okay for us to get rid of the fence as long as there was no water in the pool. I was like, awesome, great. Now I don't have to pay $500 a month for another fence because we're not doing anything. We let the fence go, and about a month later is when I got the administrative citation. And I pretty much feel that was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back. The county was already upset with us doing some work without permits and going beyond. But when they saw the fence gone, that was it. They had it with us. I'd just like to say one more time that Shelley said it would be okay for us to get rid of that fence if there was no water in it. We were basically going off her word. And like I said, Frank Guzman, if you want to speak to him today, we'll testify to that. Needless to say, I was surprised when 1 month later I received notification of a fine of $50 a day since February 08. February 8th, 08. Upon receipt of this letter, I realized that Shelley was wrong and immediately replaced the fence. Actually, as soon as I got that administrative citation, I had another fence up there within 48 hours. I realized, well, that was stupid. I really shouldn't have tried to save a couple bucks there. I was just trying to cut unnecessary costs due to the fact that we have not been working for several months due to a stop work order and because of our lack of a current grading plan. We feel Shelley Prater was being dishonest and perhaps knew that this would be the straw that broke the camel's back, escalating a corrective notice to a full-blown administrative citation. For this reason, I would like to make a second request that a new inspector be assigned to our project. We simply can't trust Shelley Prater. Upon receipt of the administrative citation, we did have a fence back up within 48 hours. It has never been our desire to be defiant, and we have no problems following orders. In conclusion, I have tried to stay within the parameters of this hearing and the reason we are all here. A fine of $19,650 plus or minus some odd $12,050 plus or minus some odd $7,600. Not quite sure how many fines are really being imposed. We feel these fines are excessive to say the least, especially since the county clearly has its facts wrong. For instance, the fine of the fence starting February 8th when it was clearly not removed until March 1st. That's what I have. I'm not quite sure if it was March 1st or not. Something like somewhere between March 1st and March 3rd is when it actually got removed. At $50 a day, this is quite a discrepancy. Another instance on page 8, December 14th. Refer to page 8 here. Okay. November 29, 2000, Building Inspector Dennis Bayers made a site visit. Todd Barr, okay. No, I'm sorry, December 5th, that's the one I wanted to talk about. Prater made a site visit and met with Overton. More grading had been done and dirt was still sloughing over near the rear property line with no erosion control in place. Prater gave Overton specific verbal instructions to immediately use jute mat to prevent erosion and remove all dirt from the fence. A 6th correction notice was left. December 5th, 2007, Todd Barr was there with Shelley. We were all there together, me, Todd, Shelley. I remember specifically, after meeting with them and talking with them, going to the store and buying jute mat. The next morning, it was there. We'll look at December 14th. Prater made another site visit. No jute mat had been installed and no correction to the slope had been made. This is an absolute falsehood. And maybe Todd Barr would want to talk about that too. He was there. I was there. Frank was there. I personally put the jute mat down. I just don't understand why you guys, they can make all these claims against me when their facts are wrong. Let's get back a page. Yeah, like I said, I personally did put that jute mat there. I'll testify to that. This is wrong in here. I just don't know what else to say about that. Another instance that has really set us back is that basically in September of 2006, we were issued a permit for our in-ground swimming pool. That's quite a while ago. Digging commenced, which led eventually to the steel and rebar frame being built. Now, our pool company, Premier Pools, after they had done the steel, gave me a call and said the county would not allow them to gunite the pool. I didn't really understand why, because the county had given them the permit. Their reason being that we did not have a current permit for the house. I didn't understand why they would issue us the permit, then in the middle of the work not let us finish, leaving the pool unstable for the winter and the steel to inevitably rust and ruin. The county refused to allow us to gunite the pool or, concrete up the pool to stabilize it. Well, what do you know? The steel rusted and the walls started to fall in on themselves. Several months later, Shelley Prater was threatening us to fine us if we didn't fix the rusted steel and the walls caving in and stabilize it. And I told her, what's going on here? We've wanted to gunite this thing the whole time. You told my pool company they couldn't do it until we had a house permit. And we were currently having issues with the plan check Veritas. and they were just not approving it, went through 4 approvals, and eventually had to go back to the county, and, that was a whole mess. But either way, it was irrelevant. The county did give us a pool permit and then wouldn't let us finish it, but obviously let us get pretty far into it. I had to replace, let's see here. I explained to her that we always wanted to gunite the pool in the first place. We subsequently replaced the steel completely, fixed the walls that caved in, and eventually got to gunite our pool. And we still don't have a house permit. So eventually, I guess it was cool now, but it wasn't cool before. This particular blunder cost me about $4,000 in labor and materials. This is a large pool with a spa. This is not a kiddie pool. Hopefully these examples show the hindrances we have come across in our attempts to develop this lot in La Contenta. The county, with its inspector, Shelley Prater, has cost us tens of thousands of dollars in unnecessary costs. Does it really seem fitting to fine us another $19,000 plus? Please relinquish these fees so that we can focus on finishing this project in a timely manner. We are way over budget already, and with the economy the way it is, this fine will undoubtedly become the nails in our coffin. I hate to sound dramatic, but this project is my life. We don't feel that we are being treated fairly, especially with the patients that I have had. I'd like to thank you for your time. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. And I have Steve Buckley here, who's in charge of my erosion and grading control, and Frank Guzman, who is my partner in helping me develop this lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah, if I could start off here. The most recent photos that I'm seeing here are in March of this year, and I see foundations being formed. I'm not seeing steel or anything in the foundations, but what's the status of those foundations today?
Of our foundation?
Yeah.
All we have done is the forms, because I spoke with White.
Jeff White.
Jeff White at the building department, and he said, go ahead, form it up. You should have your permits any minute now. And we should have our permits any minute now because our plans are approved, but we don't have permits. So it's just sitting there. That's okay with me. I don't mind. I can take it.
Okay. Are you a general contractor?
No, I'm an owner builder. I'm about 6 months away from applying for my general contractor. Need about 6 months more experience. So as soon as I get these permits, I will be applying.
Okay. That's all I have to this gentleman.
Okay. Any other board questions?
I just have a technical question.
Yeah.
Why do you need a fence around a pool with no water? Is that a code?
So somebody doesn't fall in and get hurt?
It is not required.
Because animals could get it. I mean, I understand why. I mean,
You get hurt
I
less
mean, I
falling
knew
in
you had to have them with water, but
You can get hurt more falling in an empty pool than in a full one. You don't know how to swim.
so that's
safety.
under a code that you have to have a fence?
Yeah, we understand that now. I mean, that fence is never going to go anywhere now. I mean, it's permanent.
Well,
But if she said it wasn't there on February 8th, and it was.
She's not going to go for that. She's not here. Why isn't he finishing?
All right. Well, let's thank you. I think that's all the questions for now. Obviously, we have two very different narratives in this, and it would be nice to try to reconcile some of the discrepancies between the different presentations. I assume you may be here to try to accomplish that?
Yes.
All right.
Good morning. Stephanie Moreno, Director of Community Development. I was involved in this particular case because of the fact that the property owner, refused to adhere to any of the warnings and notices that we originally gave him. I'm the one that assigned Shelley Prater to keep an eye on the property to make sure that there was not going to be damage to the neighboring properties because of the amount of grading that was going on. There was some concern that neighboring properties would be damaged, and the property owner was blatantly not responding to our correction notices. It was at the point of time that Public Works got involved that they began adhering to the grading requirements. The requirement to bring someone on board is when Steve Buckley came on board, but we were working directly with the owner-builder in the beginning. The swimming pool issue, there's compaction issues there that he had to demonstrate. There is no point in gunning a pool that may have to be removed later if the soil compaction wasn't in place. The reason that building permits haven't been issued is that because of the amount of grading that was done on this site without permits, in spite of numerous correction notices that were given to the property owner. There are, in your file, in the packet of information you have, it demonstrated that other inspectors were also out on the site, witnessed this. Erosion control was the primary concern when we first started, but because the property owner continued to grade the property after correction notices were issued, it turned into a larger issue, at which point Public Works took over on that part of it. Planning Commission normally puts a motion in to reduce the fees to zero if there is abatement. In this particular case, because of the fact that we've been working so long on trying to get this owner's attention, they did not put that recommendation in, and that is why that is not in front of you. We have no objection to lowering or reducing or eliminating the fines if the property owner does come into compliance. However, we would not recommend that you reduce the amount of administrative fees that are being charged, because we have spent a great deal of time and effort at public expense to get this property owner into compliance.
Okay. Any questions for the CDA director?
Stephanie, is that in here, the amount?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, the amount. Oh, here it is, on page 5. Okay.
Page 5.
A concern I had was in listening to Mr. Overton, is everything seemed to be the county's fault. And there, I mean, I might say that we might have delayed things, or we had issues in getting you your permits on time. I have a hard time believing this whole thing was the county's fault, except for the detective who found the guys who stole your tools. Is there not some culpability here on your part?
So I don't blame the county for everything. It's just I have the reason why I take this demeanor is because of the county trying to blame me for everything, and it's just only way I can counteract that. I'm not saying the county's wrong or anything. I'm just pointing out the facts in which they were wrong, in which they were trying to just say that they were right. And I'm telling no, this I didn't. There's a lot of stuff in this book, and I'm not talking about everything else. I know that there's been many times where we were just pushing it a little hard, and that's what I do. I'm sorry for that, but you guys, the county really shouldn't be coming down on me so hard when the facts are wrong, and I really haven't done anything that really deserves punishment. That's all I can say.
I'm assuming that what's before us is both the administrative citation fees and the fines.
Yes.
Could we have a clarity as to what each of the fines?
Sure.
I know it's in.
I think it's a breakdown. It's I don't have it in front of me. 500 plus on the administrative fees, I think, costs.
Mr. Chairman, before we get into the specifics of the
Yes.
fines, Mr. Buckley is here. I'd like to ask him some questions if possible.
All right. Mr. Buckley, would you come to the podium, please?
Hey, good morning. My name is Steve Buckley. You had some questions?
Could you briefly state your qualifications for doing the work that you do?
Sure. I'm the owner of the SJB Consulting Group. We have a staff engineer who handles our grading and engineering division. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, so I can try and answer the questions as best as I can.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but would you say that you are an expert in the field in which you are working?
I'm trying.
He is on driveways.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying. We do civil engineering. We consider ourselves experts in the field. I myself am not an engineer.
Okay.
So I can't say that I am an expert in engineering because I don't have that license or that certificate.
Okay. Our CDA director was making reference to the fact that there was some compaction issues that had come into question about the pool. And I don't have a site grading plan here, but I'm just trying to piece together different views of this site. But it appears to me that the pool was done in a cut, not that there's a fill beyond the edge of the pool where they've got some of these gravity walls as the slope goes down. But am I right that the actual
Let me step you back for a minute, and then I'll answer your question. We became involved in the project in January, and John gave me a call one day and said, hey, the county's gotten my attention. We've got some problems out here. We need to get them fixed. We need a grading plan. We need erosion control. At the same time that he hired my firm, he also hired Holdridge and Cole to come in and help him to solve the compaction-related issues. And Ken Williams from Holdridge and Cole couldn't be here today. He had a scheduling conflict. But I know that he has done compaction testing out there for the driveway area. And I believe that they've also done some work, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they've also done some work in the area of the pool. So I can't answer that question specifically, but I can tell you that based on my knowledge of the site, I do believe the majority of that pool is in a cut. If there's fill, it's to the northern end. Probably not the pool itself, but maybe immediately adjacent to the pool, we start picking up some fill areas. Okay.
Well, having spent a good deal of my life doing these kinds of things, I mean, the worst nightmare that you have is that you do the excavation, tie the steel on, get ready to call for the gunite, and for some reason you can't get it done, and it sits there and you watch the banks slough off and everything. It's a complete removal and replacement, and I'm just having a really tough time trying to figure out. I wasn't there, and there may be justification for it, but why, if you have a valid permit, the pool is constructed in a way that there is a sign off on the to go ahead and gunite it, but then all of a sudden, whoops, you can't gunite it because of what? That's a puzzle to me.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer that question. Perhaps someone from the building department could, or community development.
They specifically told us the reason why we could not gunite the pool is because we did not have a house plan permit, an actual permit for building the structure, because they didn't want us to have a pool and not a house. They didn't want us to have a free public pool, basically. That's, I think, was their fear. I don't know.
Okay. All right, and then in your experience, Mr. Buckley, and let me phrase it a little bit differently. I don't, at the risk of being overly repetitive, I have done this type of construction before, and there's always a scramble to get the fence, the pool, perimeter fencing around the pool the day before that it gets plastered and filled. I've never been on a job where you have to put an enclosure around a pool unless it's half full of rainwater or something. That might be a different situation, but a minimum amount of water in the bottom of the pool doesn't, in my experience, hasn't precipitated the construction of a perimeter fence. Has your experience been any different than that?
What John has out there right now, as I see it, is an open excavation that has rebar in it. It's formed up to gunite. There may be some rainwater collecting in the bottom of it.
It's gunnited.
No,
it is.
It is gunnited now.
Yeah.
Okay. And when was that done?
Prior to March.
Okay.
So you've got.
So there's some rainwater in the bottom of it. I don't know what county code says about fencing off that construction project.
Okay. Do we have anybody here that can answer that question about whether it's doesn't matter? Todd?
Yes. I'd like to address two things if I could. It does appear to me that there is fill to the north side of that pool, and there were some compaction problems there.
On the bottom of the pool?
Excuse me?
Are you saying that the bottom of the pool is on fill? Because it's usual and customary for you to have a huge area beyond the pool where that's where you gunite. You can put up plywood on the backside and you backfill and compact. The issue would be, is the bottom of the pool in fill or
I cannot say that specifically, but to the north side of the pool is fill, which fill that's quite deep, matter of fact, and it actually could erode and go down into the property that's down below. That was the point. That was a part of the compaction problem. The pool enclosure is required to have an enclosure around a pool, and that pool, an open hole, sat for quite some time without an enclosure around it. Matter of fact, let me get back to when the first correction notice was issued here. And while I'm getting to that also, I'd like to make it clear that house plans for his house have been approved. They were ready for him to pick up until we started having these other problems with the lot, including the compaction, grading, things like, and the other issues. November 30th of 2006 was the first correction notice. And I mentioned on that erosion control, fencing around the swimming pool, and some other grading issues.
But I guess that's my first concern is that...
February 16th, 2007 was the next one. And actually we started looking at these, and I believe there are 7 correction notices that were issued in this case instead of the 5 that I had originally referred to.
Okay. I am not going to argue that this grading has been done properly, and I'm acknowledging that probably the correction notices specifically referencing the grading issues are warranted. What I'm concerned about is charging somebody $50 a day for the absence of a fence around the pool whenever I'm about 90% certain that pool fence is not required until the day that it's filled. We have a distinguished gentleman in the audience here that's built a lot of construction too. Mr. White, is it your feeling that the fence is not required until the pool is filled?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not. Didn't do all that many pools, but I personally never saw a fence around one until after it was condemned.
Okay. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is this is a substantial amount of fines, and it's based on so many dollars per day, and I'm just not certain that it's a valid charge. I don't know that there's a violation.
If I could address that as well. Whether or not, I believe that Health and Safety Code requires someone to secure the site, so it's not a health and safety issue. Regardless of if there is a specific situation for a swimming pool under construction, there's still problems with attractive nuisances. And an excavation of that size can attract children, animals, other types of things that could cause an issue for construction. So I believe that code compliance is well within their right to issue a citation for an attractive nuisance on the property. That being said, we already indicated we have no problem with reducing the amount of fine on this particular case. But I do want to reiterate, this property owner continued to grade on his property in spite of correction notices that were given to the contrary. Once you pull a swimming pool permit, you can't go out and continue to grade your property. It changes the site plan. It could cause issues for neighboring properties. We were concerned about the impact to neighboring properties on this property. If he'd been on 100 acres out in the middle of nowhere and wasn't impacting anyone, it would have been a different situation, but it was not. It was on a subdivision lot impacting other properties, and I just wanted to reiterate that.
Okay. Are there any other board questions for any of the participants in this procedure?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Buckle.
I did want to make a comment, though, if I can at this time.
Yes, I haven't closed comment
Okay.
yet.
Okay. As I started to say in January, John called us and hired Coldridge & Cole and also my firm to come in and start drawing up plans to comply with the county. And it's my opinion at that time that John started down the path of compliance for this. What happened prior to that, with correction notices and that kind of thing, I feel is in the past. And John has moved forward. We developed an erosion control plan that was implemented. We developed a grading plan that's going through the review process right now. As it turns out, there were only 3 areas of the parcel that did not comply with county grading requirements. He had a couple of slopes that were too steep, and he had a retaining wall that crossed a property line. All things that we can easily remedy. So even though John was working under an outdated grading plan and doing grading on a site, it turns out he was still, in my mind, in substantial conformance with the requirements of the county. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bringing it back to the board, Supervisor Claudino, do you have any proposals here for discussion?
I do. In spite of the lengthy conversation and the questions about whether a pool needs to be full or not, actually, personally, I'd rather fall into a full one than an empty one, but that's because I swim well. This entire dialogue seems to be the result of simply ignoring not only the regulations, but the reminder that there are regulations and the repeated request that somebody obey these regulations. And I'd be quite honest with you, Mr. Overton, I'm having a hard time finding sympathy. This case was referred to the Code Compliance Unit last year after you failed to respond to 5 correction notices. And you continued to work without the proper plans and permits. I'm really glad that you hired Mr. Buckley. I'm sure that you are on the straight and narrow now. He will guide you, and I hope you listen to him. You made a comment during your presentation that you just shouldn't listen to the inspector. Wrong. That's where you got wrong here. You need to listen to the inspector. Names are not important, but you need to listen to the inspector. You need to respond when you're asked to stop work. We've got a laundry list here. There's October of 2007, notice of violation, December 14th, stop work order, January 17th, follow-up letter. Later on that same month, public works stop work order, correction notice, correction notice, correction notice, correction notice, correction notice, correction notice, and correction notice. Apparently, well, I shouldn't say apparently because I have no idea why you didn't respond to these and get your permits in place before you started the work. It's not only the concern of the code compliance, the building department, and the public works departments, but as was stated just a few minutes ago, your neighbors. There's a couple of letters in this package here from Mr. Gary Caldwell, who happens to know a little bit about this sort of thing. He's a neighbor. He's very concerned. He wrote 2 letters to you asking you to please get in compliance, damaging his property and another adjacent property owner's property. As far as the thefts on your property, I'm really sorry for that. That does happen. And I don't know I have no idea what finding the needles there has anything to do with heroin, meth. Maybe the person was a diabetic. I feel sorry for them if they are. You seem to, in my opinion, you seem to not take this too seriously yet, talking about handwritten grading plans and not caring about the grading plan, etc. And as a CDA director, well, I believe you said that.
Okay,
yeah, well, I believe that's what you said.
I've brought it back to the board
so,
right now.
And as stated by the CDA director, perhaps if you were out on a large parcel of land, this wouldn't matter so much, but you're affecting people who live directly adjacent to you. The fine itself is to be applied as a lien to the property. So it's not like you have to dig in your pocket and come up with it. But I see that the Planning Commission, they listen to your testimony as well. And the whole thing here is not whether you bought brand-new jute or whether you should or should not fill the swimming pool. The thing for me is that you have cost a tremendous amount of time and resources by not complying and by not responding. And I don't know how else to actually get your attention. And if I understand you correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, at this time you have still not in your hand approved grading plan, erosion plan, and building plan. They're eminent, they're over here, but you now, since you've hired Mr. Buckley, I'm sure you do have these plans in order so that they can be approved. But you have, over the past year, continued to work, and continued to work, getting ahead of yourself. So this is why. Okay. Second here, I'm reading this. Yeah. This is why I'm going to, in my opinion, I uphold the recommendations of the Code Compliance Unit and of the Planning Commission for the administrative hearing. So those are my comments.
All right. And as I recall, a moment ago, you opened the possibility for further comment by saying, correct you if you were wrong.
Yes, I did.
Shouldn't
have done that, I guess.
No?
Okay.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to say that every time we've ever gotten a stop work order, we didn't work at all. And then, you know, someone like Shelley would come in and say, this is wrong, you better fix that. So we just start fixing what they tell us to fix. And that's really what it came down to, you know, and we haven't been doing anything for over 6 months now.
No.
I just don't really understand.
Mr. Overton, you continued to work on the property beyond the scope of approved plans despite the numerous stop work orders. They never even, after 5 correction notices that you never even responded to, it was the first time they were able to even get a hold of you. No, correction notices are written. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you. Okay. Other board comments? I believe we have, did you make that in the form of a motion?
Well, I just wanted to see if the board had.
Well, at one point we talked about perhaps breaking the administrative costs off from the other costs. How much are the administrative costs in this?
It's on page 5.
We have a total administrative costs between Public Works and Code Compliance of $2,572 right now.
Well, the board is always, on these instances, as we have in the prior two, don't run away, Todd, sort of use the carrot and stick approach where you pay the total fine if you don't complete it within a certain time frame. And the incentive has always been to give the carrot of well, complete it, and then you won't have to pay the fine. And that's always been the intent of the board, is to get those things that are objected to corrected. I have a little bit of a hard time saying we're just going to stock somebody for $19,000+. I mean, obviously the guy's a day late and $1 short, and I don't, it's sort of like we're trying to get blood out of a turnip here, I suspect anyway. I'm for the having them pay the administrative costs, but I would still like the carrot and stick approach to correcting the deficiencies, quite frankly. I have a hard time thinking that I can just support a 19, what was the number? $19,650 penalty, irregardless of whether he corrects them or not. Quite frankly, I think if we do that, I don't think he'll have the money to correct them. I think we're sort of...
Well, that would go as a lien against the property, actually, Tom. And I understand what you're saying. In this instance, however, he hasn't wanted to comply. It's been over a year that he hasn't responded to
Well, if
various...
he doesn't respond within what time frame with the 19,000, if we do the carrot and stick that we've always done in the past, how much more time would he have to correct the deficiencies?
That would be 90 days from today.
90 days from today?
Yes.
Well,
90 or 9?
90.
90.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
I mean, that's a pretty draconian situation to say, get it done in 90 days or pay us $19,650. I don't know. I mean, myself, I have a hard time with that figure.
Okay, other board comments?
It's the biggest one.
If he doesn't get some of this done in 90 days, he's going to be into another rainy period. So I would go along with Tom's suggestion that we
stick with the administrative costs and give them a carrot and stick on the balance.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, he'd like to go with the whole amount.
I'm asking.
Yeah, well, I would like to. I don't have my feet stuck in the concrete here, Tom, but the reason I say that is not because he's been out of compliance and we want him to get into compliance. The reason I feel so strongly about this is that he has been told to get in compliance numerous times, and he's proceeded with work without permits intentionally on several occasions. So, that's why I feel so strongly about this. But if the board wants to go with some modification, I'm willing to compromise, I guess. I just don't think he should get off the hook if he's told to stop working, and he doesn't. And told to get permits, and he doesn't. And it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. There's a level of intent here, is the way I look at it. And I mean, even to accrue $2,500 in admin costs, that means that people have been going down there and going down there and going down there for a year, and there has been no compliance. Well, now, oh my God, now it's $19,000. So now I'm going to go hire an engineering company and maybe get in compliance and maybe get some permits to do my work because maybe they're serious. And I take it as a slap in the face to the county and to staff and to the regulations that we have here as policy. Somebody to just thumb their nose at them. And that's why I feel that way. But I don't know how you can break down the other. I don't even know what he has to do yet. He's in the process of getting permits. He doesn't even have the permits approved yet, so he doesn't even know what he needs to comply with. Am I right? The permits aren't issued.
No, not for the grading. They're not, and the house plans have not been issued, but they are approved. Once the grading is approved, those can be issued also.
So is there any way for us to tell how long it will be before those plans are approved and issued? Or the permits, rather?
I don't know that Public Works has approved his grading plans yet.
Okay.
I would have to find that out. But
it's half of it approved. There's two places to approve it, and the first one approved it, and then they're waiting on Public Works.
Okay, so I'd have to check with them on time frames on that.
Todd, on page 5, could you clarify something for me?
Okay.
It has penalties, and you have permits required, 39, erosion 39, corrective 21. Where are those penalties? Is that part of the 19,000? I'm not real.
Yes, it is. You're talking about the permit required. Did you say permit required?
Correct. Where does that? How is that determined?
This is the Public Works.
Public Works determined those fines. I'm sorry. Yes, it was part of their new grading ordinance that they did.
That's 79 days at $50 a day.
Yes.
And then there's a different page for our fees. One thing that I would like to say, if the board wants to reduce the fees, one thing that I'd like you to keep in mind is that once he gets the permit, he has to go do the work, and we don't necessarily have a good track record of him following the requirements of the code. So we don't know if the work, hopefully it will be done appropriately, but what you might want to do is require some kind of bond or something, or issue the authority to code enforcement to abate if indeed he doesn't do what he needs to do in spite of the fines. So reduce the fines, but if he doesn't comply...
Or reinstitute the 19,000.
Right.
The 19,000 comes in if it's not done in 90 days, and we're not the cause of it not being done. Because
he might not be able to do it all.
But the issue is getting the permits. There's an additional issue of following the requirements of the grading plan.
But if he doesn't follow it, then he doesn't get signed off, and the complaint is not mitigated, and the 19,000 is is that due and payable. Is that not correct, Todd? Is that how
We need to make sure that then it's not just that he gets the permits,
No,
but
it's
that
not
your
a question
90
of
days
getting
is
the
that
permit.
he
It's a question
finals the
of abating
permits.
the-
Okay.
Need to get his project into compliance. I just want to make sure that the understanding here on my part is, and that I want to make sure people understand my feeling about this. This incident, this is not the fault of this county or any department here. We're taking all this time up today because Mr. Overton, perhaps out of excitement, exuberance of getting his project done or whatever else, has for over a year continually failed to respond to correction notices and the requirement to have adequate permits before he commenced work. And that's why we're here today. So if there is, I will compromise my position here. I do believe the $2,572 administrative fine needs to be paid. And I need to find some way to guarantee a bond is much too cumbersome, I think, but perhaps if we could say that if the project is not brought into compliance within the 90-day period or whatever the period is, then the complement of this fine will be assessed to Mr. Overton. Reinstated.
Okay.
Will that work?
Can I ask for some clarification on that?
Yes.
What exactly is it that he needs to do to come into compliance?
Todd?
And so far, what we've talked about is grading without a grading plan.
The plan needs to be issued.
Issues about the fence around the pool, right?
Right.
What specifically does he need to do to come into compliance?
Well, help me out here, Stephanie, but if Mr. Overton gets his grading, if he gets his grading plan, then he needs to come into compliance with whatever the terms of that grading plan are.
We'd like the grading permit finalized
Permit. Okay.
as part of the compliance issue because,
And the project needs to come into compliance with the terms of that permit.
right.
So we need to get the grading permit final?
Yes.
Issued final?
Issued and final. We think that's appropriate if you're going
Okay.
to reduce the fees. Give him 90 days, that it be final within the 90-day period.
Now, if I can have some input into that, the grading plan has been in the county for about a month, maybe a little over. It's taking us 2.5 months to get approval of the grading plan because of the backlog. It may be that, if we have to make a revision and then go through another month waiting for the revision to be approved, we may not have approval. Or we may have approval but not have had time to implement that plan.
Yeah. Well, the timing obviously can't be started until you get your permit issued.
Can we perhaps make it 60 days from the
Date of the issuance of the permit.
grading permit, and certainly not before October 15, which is kind of the end of the construction period? Can we give a window?
My concern with that is that it could be that he sits on getting the revisions back into Public Works for a length of time. So if the
Let's
board
get
wants...
timelines on both
Okay.
phases of this so that it's reciprocal, all right?
You
Is
have
that
my word
possible?
on record.
Well,
We want to get this thing.
More
And we'd
than
like
just
no
the
work
word,
on
let's get some
site.
dates certain on both sides, if that's possible. But I think the 60-day, just weighing in for a moment, I think 60 days from the issuance of the permit is appropriate. And I also think that there should be some timeline for you to receive the information required to get that done. So what is your timeline for that?
For getting it done?
No, for
getting the permit final?
You're saying you don't want anybody dragging anything out, so what are the timelines that would be exceeding?
I would say that if the property owner is serious, that a one-week turnaround on revisions should be sufficient. They come back redlined, I believe, with a list from Public Works of what's deficient. And so if they follow that
so 1 week
list...
turnaround from...
I think that's fine. But the Public Works just changed some of their requirements. They changed their notes. And so we've been having to make revisions on every plan to come into compliance with their new verbiage. And this one's going to fall in that category too.
Okay.
So I know we'll have to make some sort of revision. A week is plenty.
All right, so is there any objection on the part of the board for those two timelines? One would be...
That's fine.
Okay.
Could you clarify those for us?
And leaving some discretion to staff.
Could you clarify those for us again? It's 60 days once permit's
the
issued
issue.
Yes.
to final the building permit?
Yes, and 7 days.
Are we talking all permits, or are we talking just the
We're
grading?
talking the grading permit.
And
That's
what about
one
the
that we're
building
How
considering.
about the rest of the...
The building permit
non-compliance
needs to
issues?
be also picked up, but my understanding from the applicant is that that will happen once the grading permit is issued. We can set a time frame on that as well.
Okay.
All right, and
do these two permits include the provisions for property erosion control?
Yes, the grading permit includes it, and our building inspectors check for erosion control during the course of a building inspection, and it needs to be on site per the grading ordinance during the entire length of the building construction.
Okay, so we will have the administrative fine applied at $2,572. Is that correct?
That's administrative cost, yes.
Just
Administrative costs.
one question on that. If this is going to be going out for 60 or 90 days, I would anticipate that there's going to be future administrative fees so that we wouldn't recapture those.
The way it's worded in the motion, excuse me, Mr. President Thomas, is future costs, administrative costs and all future costs.
Okay, all right.
That's fine. The second still holds.
Okay.
all right. There's a
So we have
motion.
60 days from the issuance of the permit. Is that
Yes,
correct?
60 days for issuance of permit, and we're going to have a 1-week turnaround on all corrections. to
All
the grading
revisions?
plan.
Okay.
All right.
By the applicant, obviously
Yes.
we can't control or all.
All right.
There's a motion and a second. I'd like the opportunity to comment if nobody else wishes to. Anybody else?
I'm done.
All right. Just want to say a couple of things. First, this came to us with approval of a rather mild-mannered planning commission. So clearly, and this is quite extraordinary in terms of the harshness and the unwillingness, or at least the reluctance on their part to waive this in the normal way. We've restored that normalcy, but I'd like to comment upon my thoughts as to how this might have occurred. I think that often people make presumptions about the wishes or intent of this county, take an adversarial position, sometimes don't navigate it very well, and sometimes we ourselves don't necessarily give a common picture. In this particular case, however, while there's plenty of attitude, there's also, I think, great clarity in the record as to what was being requested and some consistency in terms of application. There may be, along the way, some issues and disputes of interpretation, but to have shined on staff, and even at this late date, saying that, well, we just decided to ignore this particular thing is really not good strategy. Not good presumptions about our wishes and intent. Actually, the intent of this board, to just make it clear, is that we want people, we've been evolving from a situation in which maybe connections meant as much as what the code or what the rules of the process were. And we're determined as a board to try to apply things equally and clearly to all. You've been part of this transition period, and I would imagine that that's not been all that easy to navigate, and that's probably one of the reasons that we're all getting ready to agree to a compromise in this regard. But I don't want that compromise to be interpreted by people out there that we're just playing cowboy with this stuff. There are specific rules. We've been revising our code. We're trying to make it clear. We're trying to get it out by electronic and other means, and we're hoping that people will take it seriously so that we don't get into these dust-ups in the future. So I'd very much ask that people respect that on both ends, both from the county. We're not playing whimsy anymore. We're being specific and trying to apply things equally to all. On the part of the public, I'm hoping that people will take that seriously and deal with us as respectfully as you're asking the county to deal with you. And it's a reciprocal issue. We have, I believe, a reciprocal agreement that's about to be suggested And I want people to get the right message from that. That said, if there's no further comment, we'll move to a vote. Would you like to restate this, Bill?
If you'd like to, I'm not sure I can.
Is it clear enough to people out there?
Okay, then the motion would be to invoke the administrative costs on the appellant, and once issuance of the grading permit, to bring the project into compliance within 60 days. The same with the building permit once it's issued. As long as there are building permit issues that are not in compliance, they will have to also be brought into compliance. And understanding that this is going to take care of the main problem seems to be the erosion control, and of course we're in the summer now, but the project will not be completed until we get into the rainy season. So to make sure that those erosion control measures stay in place through the entire time it takes to complete this project. But the guarantee or the bond here is that if those provisions are not complied with, then the original fine will be reinstated. Is that correct?
Clear enough to everybody?
I don't think there was anything about a bond.
No, it's not.
No, that's just an analogy.
Okay,
I mean,
second still holds.
All right. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on to 5-0.
Did you even take
Yes,
care
sir.
of this? I don't know why John didn't call me.
I do intend to call him.
Tell him to work.
Is that a lien or is that a fine? Did you pay that?
We had a discussion.
It's a
Yeah,
45-day.
but now he's wanting me to get involved in that.
I believe, sir, I believe you have 45 days on that.
Okay, so I'll just tell him to call you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom?
be at the restaurant at midnight.
Why don't we do 16 unless it's going to be long?
All right, let's
Come back to closed session. No, we don't have to have the clerks come back.
Okay.
Okay, 16.
I do not have anything to bring before the board today, Mr. Chair.
Wait a minute. We have not
Rita,
done
Russ.
16. That's the county-initiated text. Zoning code. Could you take that outside, please? We're still in session.
Is it the ordinance that we introduced last week, Tom?
I don't have that on my agenda either.
We have
that one's
item.
on the revised
This was a revised agenda because we took action in the last board meeting to put this to today. This is the language that we discussed at some length about the zoning code, general access requirements, and what we were doing on an interim basis. That was vetted rather thoroughly last time. We reached some compromises between us. That language has been perfected and is now before us for action.
Right. This is a request to approve the ordinance as presented last week. You waived the first reading. This is the second portion of the required procedure to adopt an ordinance.
I move we deny the change.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No.
How about another?
Is there another motion on
I
this?
move we continue this for 9 years.
Is there a
No,
second?
till January of 09.
I move adoption.
Okay, there's a
The
motion.
ordinance.
Actually, we have two motions on the floor. Is there a second to Tom's motion?
Oh, for God's.
Yes.
Come on.
Tom
We got to get the
Dies for lack of a second.
dies for lack of a second. Bill's motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that the waive reading?
And
No,
Waive reading.
waive reading was last week.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes on a 3-2.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Chairman, we still have a couple of, are we doing a closed session?
What I would propose is that we do our correspondence quickly and that
Yes,
we...
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to bring before the board today.
Okay, Mr. Thomas?
Just want to remind folks of, well, this is not a board assignment, but they're doing the Calaveras Leadership on Wednesday. That concludes my report. Nothing else.
Okay, Supervisor Callaway.
I have Council of Governments Area 12 Agency on Aging, and Central Sierra Child Support this week. And I want to add one other thing. It came up with Mr. Castle that I would like the bike and pedestrian master plan approved prior to the general plan, because we can lose out on potential funding for projects.
Child support's on
Friday, 1 o'clock in San Andreas.
Okay, Supervisor Claudino?
I have nothing to report.
All right, I have several things to report. I'm doing an awards presentation for scholarships at the high school awards ceremony on Wednesday at 7, that's tomorrow. On Thursday and Friday, I'm going to represent the 5 counties at the Sierra Conservancy Board meeting, and that's happening in Shasta County. And that will require me to miss the first, my normal office hours on Thursday and the first 5 board meeting at 9:30 on Friday. I'm hoping that somebody might fill in for me. This happens at the first 5 office on Main Street in San Andreas, 9:30 in the morning. Is there anybody that could fill in for me?
I can.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Russ. And also that at 1 o'clock I have the Family Support Board meeting, and that's the Joint Powers Act. Is there anybody who could fill in for that? That would be Friday at 1 o'clock. It's at CalWorks.
I'm already there. It's 2 supervisors on it. I'll take his vote.
All right, you got it.
So I'll be there.
All right, thank you.
I mean, but it's another supervisor, so if another supervisor can be there, that would be fine.
All right, on Monday, the following Monday, there's the Economic Development meeting that's planning the Economic Summit, and that's at Mark Twain St. Joe's. And finally, a couple of things. Out from the understory, the kids that were working on this, and this was through both our programs with our behavioral health department and probation and others, working in conjunction with UC Davis, produced quite an extraordinary video and pictorial documentary of a number of projects and community efforts going up in the Blue Mountain community area at the 4 towns up there. They unveiled their product on Sunday, which was quite excellent, and they wanted to know whether they could show it to the Board of Supervisors on the 17th. It would be a video, and the kids are ranging from ages 12 to 17. There are 9 documentaries that they did. Each is 2 to 3 minutes each. It takes about 30 minutes, actually maybe 37.
So they want it as a study session.
Oh, yeah, if people are open to it.
I won't be here, but
okay.
I mean, I'd like to see it. Could you wait?
Yeah, we could actually do it on another day.
Maybe do it in July.
Do we have an afternoon? Could we just schedule it at some point? The kids will be out of school in either event, so they may be hard to round up, but maybe some of them could come. All right, let me know when it might be scheduled.
You want to do that? We can probably do that now if you like. You could set the date now.
All right, let's do it, and I can let them know.
July
22nd.
July 22nd.
They will be scattered to the wind by then. I would hope it could be a little early.
July 8th.
Is the 8th possible?
Looks good.
Hopefully.
Up to the understory presentations.
Okay, and that would be 1:30, a study session?
1:30 study session, yeah.
Okay. Okay, done. That's all I've got. Administration?
Pasadena.
Anything from the clerk's office? All right, we're headed over to the senior